Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace, episode 299 on Sifted Games at sifted.net. I'm Shane Satterfield, your host for the next couple hours of intense game discussion. Alongside me to do that today is Matthew. Kyle, what's up, Matt?
Not much.
How's your week been?
Going all right.
Another week not filled with games?
Not really, no. Although I have taken on a big project in that I got back into Final Fantasy XIV.
Oh, really?
I'm going to try to slog my way to the good stuff in that one. And it's not easy.
You count me out, bro.
the core game stuff is like it's gotten to be... I mean, early on I was like, oh, cool. But now it's just like, go get these things. Okay, got these things. Go bring the things back to the guy. Oh, cool. You know who needs these is this guy. Okay, bring the things to the guy. The guy's like, okay, it looks good. Bring that back to that guy who wanted the thing. Bring the things to the back of the guy. Like,
so just like every other MMO.
But it's worse. It's worse.
Oh,
You're
really?
literally just going and showing a thing to a guy, and then showing it to another guy, and then showing it to the first guy, and then showing it to a third guy, and then you get another quest that's almost exactly the same. It's just, and then like everybody, like the dialogue. There's a certain point where the dialogue just like, it's just a mix of fantasy names and words. Like it's just, I'm like, I don't even know what, and like I'll just skim like I like speed read the paragraph, get 3 keywords. I'm like, yeah, I got it. Like,
yeah,
need the airship, gotta go find the airship. Okay, airship's over. Yeah, okay, crashed, fine, whatever. Oh, you don't want to do that, go kill the things. Okay, go. And like that's like 15 paragraphs of shit. Yeah. So I hope this gets way better in the expansions, because right now I'm literally there. Just it's like that meme with Thanos where someone's like, you know, been skipping all the cutscenes, get to the final boss, and it's just like, I don't even know who you are.
Well, I know that MMOs are not for me, have never been for me, and probably never will be for me. I've just kind of written those off at this point. I've given so many of them a chance. People have always said, this is the one. This does this, and this will change it. And every time I play them, I'm like, this is the same crap. What are you talking about?
Yeah. I mean, I will say that I don't mind the combat in this one so much, and it's flashy and cool, and like most of it's pretty easy to get through. But like right now, I'm just like, oh, it just keeps going. Mm-hmm. It's so much padding. And I assume that the expansions like have been, you know, they've been described to me, especially after Heaven's Word, like that they're like, you know, very streamlined and very story driven, and they're not like that anymore. Yeah. But you got to get through this stuff to get there. And I know you can buy a thing that jumps you past it, but like I felt like I should know how my character works before I do that. So.
Are you going to eventually just jump
I think
past?
I'm actually.
You're going to do it?
I'm pretty far through. I'm through a lot of it now, so okay. I think I'm getting there. Because I've got to. I think I can feel sort of how, you know, like I can feel the story starting to kind of move into that final act.
Get those subtle cues that tell you like it's starting to move along finally.
Yeah, like, and you've had like a bunch of other quests branching, and they're all kind of coming back together. Yeah. So I think I don't think it's going to last too much longer, but I'm going to try and get through that and start to, like, you know, finally catch up with some of that maybe during the summer, over the course of now in the summer, because it feels like there's not much else to play.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's really, really dry still.
And I will say it's real good podcast gameplay. Like,
yeah.
It's just like turn the sound down, listen to something else.
You don't need it.
And just go through the things. But there are times when, like, you know, I've done it for like hours on end, and I'm just like,
what am I doing?
I don't feel like I've made any progress. I'm still doing the same thing.
Tick, 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 tick. Wait. Tick, 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 tick.
Well, at least this one can be...
Tick, 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 tick.
No, it's not even that.
Oh, really?
Well, because I play it with a controller, for one thing.
Oh.
But, like, there's almost no downtime in Final Fantasy XIV. Like, you are constantly cycling through your attacks. It's just...
See, there's no cooldowns, basically.
There are cooldowns, but you know, you just find the rotation, and it's very minimal. And, like, I have a bunch of stuff. I'm the Black Mage, so I have a bunch of stuff that, like...
by the time you get back around, it's already...
there's a good chance... Like, the lower power spells have a good chance to proc one of your higher level spells to be cast instantaneously for free. So like that's sort of the core of the loop on that, is like you cast the stuff, and when something goes up for free, you hit them with that, and then like, so it's like it's a satisfying loop. It's just like, get on with it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You know, it's and you run into some level gating here and there with like the class stuff and everything, but like whatever. Like it moves at a pretty good clip, but I can see, like, I don't know. I can see why it's such a barrier of entry to some people. When, like, because if there really is stuff worth playing, but I guarantee you, if those expansions really are like, oh my god, some of the best JRPG I could be, like, I'll let you know. Yeah. Like I'll have earned it.
Yep.
So we'll see.
Okay. Welcome to GameFace 299. We are one episode away from episode 300. And actually, there's gonna be a slight delay before we get to 300. Matt is out of town next week. You're at a film festival, right, in Minneapolis?
Yeah.
So there is no GameFace next week. Mark that on your calendars. We're gonna have a week off, but it's actually good because it'll give me more time to prepare for something special for episode 300. I'm in the process of working on that stuff. So again, don't forget, next week there is no GameFace. Matt will be back the next week, and that will be episode 300. And I'm trying to cook up something fun and cool for the landmark episode. I never got to episode 300 on Invisible Walls. Like, we never made it there before I left, before we got there. So this is the longest running podcast I've ever been a part of. I'm really proud of that. It's pretty crazy, man. Like, I've already started kind of sorting like through old footage of the shows, and it's just crazy how many different sets we've had, locations we've had, hosts that we've had. It's really, really crazy. It's
7
been a long...
years.
Yeah, it's the time just flies by. When you work so hard, like... And we talk about this all the time. As you get older, the time goes faster. But also when you're just working your butt off, like, just time just whips. Like, weeks go by. Like, last night, I'm like, is it really time to do GameFace again? Because when I'm doing this podcast every day, and it's like, when you work from 8:30 or 9 in the morning until 11:30 or 12 at night, like, you only have, like, an hour, like, before you have to go to sleep to, like, do what you want. So it's hard to, like, accumulate the days mentally. They just all bleed into each other, and things just keep whipping by. But anyway, 300 will be in 2 weeks. No show next week. Ask Shane Anything is happening this weekend. This might be the last opportunity to do Ask Shane the way that we have been doing it, meaning as a podcast that you guys are a part of. Because the last episode, 2 people showed up. Literally 2 people. And look, I'm not chastising you guys for not showing up. We record on the weekends, and I totally get it. Like, I wish I had my weekends to do what I wanted. You guys do have that opportunity, so I'm not begrudging you guys for not showing up. I'm just trying to make the show as good as possible. And just a couple of us sitting around talking and having 2 people ask me, like, multiple questions, it's just not working. So this is kind of the last opportunity. If you guys are interested in Ask Shane Anything the way it is, which is basically a podcast where the people who pledge at $7 or more per month get to participate. If you're into that, you want to see it keep going, you got to show up this weekend. We'll do a good job of promoting it on our Twitter account and on our Patreon and on the site to let you guys know and remind you that it's happening. And it probably will be Saturday around like 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. But keep your eyes peeled on our Twitter and on our Patreon and on sifted.net to keep in tune with that. And if we have another really low turnout week, we'll probably go back to the old way, which was kind of how Pactor Factor is done, where we put out a call for questions. You guys load me up with questions, and then I just produce kind of like my version of Pactor Factor, really is what it used to be. And also, in those cases, the show is more frequent as well. Because it's easier to cut and organize and things like that. So just some things to keep in mind. Ask Shane coming this weekend. And then finally, we have been working on a show behind the scenes literally for like 5 months. And we are going to be debuting that show in the very near future. I think it's going to be this weekend. We're kind of going through the last few rounds of revisions right now on the show. Vincent is producing the show, and he was working on Game Pass or Fail, if you remember that show. That's now been gone for 5 or 6 months. Well, he was working on that every week, and it wasn't getting any traction, so we decided to shift gears, and Vincent is now working on a new series that will be published just once per month because there's a lot more work that goes into it. It's a big feature-length video. This episode is around 18 minutes long right now, if we don't do any more cutting to it. So it'll be a project that he works on every month, but he has like a whole month to get it done, and the shows are much more involved, I guess is the best way to put it. So look out for that. We'll have more information on that coming very soon when I'm more sure of when we're going to debut it. But Vincent's been working on that behind the scenes for quite a while, and so have I, and so have other people who have been kind of pitching in on it. So it'll be good to get that out there, and I hope that you guys really enjoy it. What else do we got here? I think that's it for all the housekeeping. It's been another slow week in games, but we do have some big stories to talk about, and we do have one pretty big game, I think, to talk about. Let me take a look in chat here, see what you guys are up to. I hope you guys have had a good week. As I said, the weeks just whiz on by. It just seems like yesterday we were in here doing the show. Rosencrantz, thank you for gifting subs to our community. Surly Mexican, thank you for Twitch Prime. Talimper, I love your username. Thank you for Twitch Prime. Toast9, thank you for Twitch Prime. Game Baron Inc., thank you for the bits. That's awesome, man. People are talking about Shadowbringers as being really good. What else we got here? Someone making fun of the song that I was playing. Making fun of Felix the House Cat, dude. That's sacrilege. P-Tour91, thank you for Twitch Prime. That's awesome. And I think that's it. Yep, that looks like it. All right. AJ the Legend Watson, thank you for the tier 1 subs. That's awesome, dude. You're great. All right, I think that's it. And away we go with another episode of GameFace. We're going to kick things off with, I'm sure you guys guessed this already, this huge bomb that just dropped, which is that...
Bombs all dropping.
Yeah, is that Square Enix has decided to sell all its Western studios, not all of them, but most of its Western studios.
All both of them.
What?
All both of them.
Yeah, well, wait, it didn't sell them all, right? Though, because the ones that are doing, like, Just Cause, like, it's still... They still own Just Cause in the studio in Avalanche or whatever.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know if they own Avalanche.
I don't know either, actually. That's a good question. But for the most part, Square Enix sold all its Western studios. If you listen to Good Morning Gaming, you'll recall about a week ago, I talked about how the president of Square Enix had said that and we talked about this on GameFace too, that Japanese developers should not be trying to make Western games. Well, now it appears that he believes that Japanese publishers should not be paying for other people to make Western games either, because he has sold 3 studios to Embracer. Remember when I told you guys, watch out?
Embracer is the creepiest, like, consolidation parent company name of all time.
Yeah.
It's creepy.
It is a little creepy. Yeah. Like, remember when I told you to watch out for Embracer, though? Yeah, I think it was like a month or two ago.
Tentacles sliding around and you don't realize it until it's got you.
Yeah, exactly. But remember I was telling you guys, watch out for Embracer. It's this rising force in the industry. It has all this dumb money to spend. Well, it bought 3 studios from Square Enix. It bought Crystal Dynamics. It bought Eidos Montreal. And it bought Square Enix Montreal, which is basically a mobile developer. But you know what?
It also makes me think of Debaser.
What?
Embracer.
Oh.
Debaser.
It also bought, in addition to those 3 studios, it bought a catalog of IP, including Tomb Raider, which has sold 88 million units across the years, Deus Ex, which has sold 12 million units across the years, Thief, Legacy Kane, and here's what I still don't understand, Matt. More than 50 back catalog titles. Like, they still haven't shared what that is or what that means.
I'm guessing that's mostly all Eidos stuff.
Meaning, so does that mean the rights to old games to be able to resell them and make the money, or is it the rights to the IP?
Both. Yeah. I would guess everything Eidos published before they were bought by Square.
Which isn't much.
I mean, there's a lot of PS1 era stuff. I mean, it's like it is a lot of stuff, but it's not anything you'd really
want. Value.
Yeah. You know, like I'm trying to think of anything right now, and nothing's really coming to mind. It does mean that Embracer owns Gex now, though. Finally, we get that collection coming up, maybe.
Well, the thing is that Embracer has actually, when it buys some of these publishers, it has kind of fallen into the habit of reviving some of this IP that the publisher that owned it before had no interest in
that's
reviving.
Sort of like standard operation. This is what THQ Nordic did, too. Like, I mean, you know, THQ Nordic did a very similar thing that Embracer's doing. They're just like buying up, a lot of Interplay stuff, a lot of like, but a lot of the stuff they did, the THQ Nordic does, has been pretty cool. They've done 2 new expansions for Titan Quest, for God's, and brought Titan Quest up to modern standards and put it on consoles. It's crazy. Like, I'm not saying that because I like that game, but like, I thought that that game was dormant for years, and all of a sudden, like, they're doing more. So like, I'm kind of into that. Like, look, sometimes you got to sell Tomb Raider as IP so you can fund your stupid pyramid scheme shit. And that seems to be Square's MO here.
So we didn't even mention yet.
Like, I'm excited to see some of these IPs in the hands of someone's going to do something with them. You know, like cool. Like, maybe we get to see another crack at Deus Ex that doesn't like dumb it down into something that is just sort of embarrassing, which is sort of where they ended up.
You felt like Human Revolution and Mankind Divided were embarrassing?
Storytelling wise, yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like, I mean, I think they worked okay mechanically for the most part, but like, they largely missed the point of Deus Ex. And look, I'm not a huge Deus Ex fan to begin with. Like, I think the original Deus Ex is one of the most overrated games of its era. Everyone talks about how you can play it however you want. Well, it didn't let me play how I wanted. Like, it had too many weird flaws in it. because
I didn't enjoy them.
I didn't like them. I mean,
I struggled to.
Nobody liked
those
Invisible
games.
War, but I didn't like the original Deus Ex all that much. But I liked Human Revolution. Okay. But I do think the story was just sort of like a weirdly linear thing, and even they admitted that they didn't understand what the boss battles were like farmed out.
Yeah,
and like they
which
had to
is
go back
so
and
weird.
fix them. And in the end,
I had forgotten about that.
There was no way to finish when it came out. There was no way to finish the boss battles with a non-lethal build.
Oh right, that's right.
Like if you built your character for stealth and you got to that first boss and didn't have like any like kind of enhancements in terms of offense, you were not going to.
You couldn't
win.
beat it. Yeah,
and so they had to kind of patch that a little bit. And it was a messy patch, but it got it done. And then Mankind Divided was a better game, but also Mankind Divided was really made with an assumption that another game was coming. All of this is explained much more eloquently in H Bomber Guy's YouTube video. Deus Ex Human Revolution is fine, and here's why, which is a 3.5 hour explication of why Human Revolution is fine, and it's true. Yeah. It is true. It is fine.
Well, here's an important thing that we have.
It could be more.
Here's an important thing that we have yet to mention, and that is that Embracer paid $300 million for all of this.
Not a lot.
Well, so at first I thought.
I mean, there was a time when that would have been what Tomb Raider was worth by itself.
Yeah. Well, at first I thought, wow, like they got the deal of the century, but then I started really kind of digging into it, and I think the purchase price vaguely makes sense. Like. They got a deal, but
they got it. I mean, it was a fire sale.
Yeah,
and part of that's because Square has mismanaged those two companies for years. Or maybe not mismanaged so much in the case of Crystal Dynamics, so much as doesn't understand what they're promoting. I like all three Tomb Raider games. Last three Tomb Raider games. But like Square doesn't seem to understand what they are or what they're supposed to be or how much they're supposed to sell.
I mean, when it comes down to it, what I really figured was that Embracer paid $300 million for the Tomb Raider IP and two studios that are capable of making the Tomb Raider games and cycling between each other to ensure that you're getting one once every 2 or 3 years. And they got a mobile studio that hopefully can make mobile games. And, I mean, even though we don't play mobile, let's be honest, you can make a lot of money in mobile games. So there's a lot of value there with that studio. But to me, really, they paid $300 million for two pretty damn good studios in the Tomb Raider IP. Mm-hmm. And you can probably make your money back
and the
with
potential Marvel continuation,
right? Which is still kind of nebulous. Like I'm not sure how that's going to work.
Oh, it's not nebulous. It's just that Disney and Marvel have to decide whether they want to continue that deal with Embracer. Mm-hmm. Marvel basically has the option to let them continue running Avengers and etc. and keep that deal. I think, at least at the very least for Avengers and Guardians. I don't know. I imagine Square probably still has right of first refusal or keeps the contract for Marvel games moving forward, but who knows? Mm-hmm. But basically, that ball is in Marvel's court. There's always like a little like kind of trigger thing there where like if a big thing changes in terms of ownership, something changes hands, licensors get to kind of decide what happens with their license. A similar thing would happen in the event that someone bought Sony Pictures. That deal for Spider-Man, automatically Spider-Man would revert to Marvel Studios.
Okay.
So which is a defensive mechanism in some cases, because in the case of Sony Pictures, that makes Sony Pictures a much less appealing purchase if you don't get Spider-Man with it, because they have nothing else. But that aside, that's pretty common with stuff like this. So
do you think that they're going to allow these companies to keep working on Avengers?
I mean,
based upon prior history,
I feel like Marvel might allow it, but if I were Embracer, I wouldn't want to.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, we did find out in the course of this that Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy lost Square $200 million. So, which is worse than I thought it was.
Me too. Yeah.
So part of what they're doing here is selling this off, seems to be recouping those losses.
Yeah.
The other thing I think they're doing is they are streamlining the company to prepare for Sony to buy them. Which Jeff Grubb talked about on Twitter today a little bit, about how like they don't have any way to confirm merger or consolidation things really, but you can feel it in the water kind of thing right now. I mean, I do believe that Sony will have bought Square within the generation. Like I think that is inevitable at this point.
Now, one thing that Square Enix did bring up was the really low profit margins of the two studios. One of them is at like 1.2% profit margin. The other was at like 3 whatever percent. It appears that Square Enix charged the studios with the cost of the Marvel IP, which seems weird to me. Like, that's something that you incur as a publisher, not the individual studios that are actually building the games.
I mean, Square has always organized cost and loss in a weird way. Like, you can see that going back to that mind-boggling thing that happened with the Hawaii studio that they set up to do Spirits Within, and it was supposed to be like the CG movie studio going forward. And Spirits Within was such a gigantic, colossal failure, which anyone could have told you it was going to be outside of that company, apparently. That they spent, I can't remember how many millions and millions of dollars building that thing, and they shuttered it after that one movie.
Yeah,
like I think they used it to render out a couple of like other CG cutscenes for other games.
Yeah, they built that huge render farm in Hawaii for like no reason that they spent so much money on.
Well, because what's his name? The I can't even remember his name anymore. Like the Final Fantasy guy.
Which one?
Sakaguchi.
Oh.
He thought that that's what he was going to do from then on. He's going to make movies at that studio. Like, that was what the studio was, basically his studio to make, revolutionize Hollywood. And man, I remember I was very online at the time, as the kids say.
Yeah.
And I was in, chat rooms and forums with people who were just die hard. Their entire identities were Square. They were die hard Final Fantasy and Chrono Trigger and all that stuff. Like, we're talking people who played Radical Dreamers in Japanese and would name their like handles after those things.
Right.
It was like, people that got really into Xenogears, and just called themselves Zeal 489 or whatever, and like stuff like that. And like, I remember them, like, we would get the older people who were more kind of like PC centric or like less crazy. Like me and some of the people I was more talked to would get in arguments with them over it, because like they really believed that like this was going to change how movies were made. Like, they really thought like the idea of like digital actors like Aki Ross or whatever her name was, the lead kid, like they thought that. And as soon as when she appeared in like, what was she in, like Maxim or Playboy or something, like the digital actress was in like a couple of soft porn mags. You remember
really?
that?
No, I don't remember that, actually.
Yeah, the heroine of Spirits Within did like a Maxim shoot and I think a Playboy spread. Maybe that was Lara. Lara did that too with Playboy. I remember that. It was a stupid 90s render model. I was like, okay, whatever. Definitely there was a Maxim cover with her on it. And like, that was like, oh, this is the future, is digital actors, and no one's going to need real actors, and Square is going to change everything, and they're going to run Hollywood because they believe. It's the same thing as like when Play Online was starting. And I've said this before. I desperately wish, if anyone out there who used to work for Square happens to have this video somewhere. Yeah, as far as I know, it's never leaked publicly. It's only been played in Square's booth in like E3 2003 or 2002 or something. But it was a Play Online promo. Maybe you saw this. I don't remember if you remember this, but it was when you would go into their theater. It was like a big dome.
Yeah.
You sit down on the stupid benches and watch their little reel.
Oh, their trailers.
Yeah. So one of the things they were running that year was like it was a Play Online, and Play Online wasn't out yet. Like, Final Fantasy 11 wasn't out yet. It was before all this, but it was like their proof of like, this is what it's going to be like. And like, people are on Play Online and they're playing on Final Fantasy 11 and they're having trouble with a boss, and they're like, call Darren or whatever his name is. So they page this guy. Is it pagers? There were pagers in this. Okay, that's how old this is. They page the guy, and he looks. He's like, oh, they need me. So he just detour, like he's walking down the street, and he just sort of turns left into a Square Play Online internet cafe.
Oh yeah,
and sits down and loads his card in, and like logs on and helps them beat the boss and everything. And like it's like all online internet gameplay is now run through Play Online. Like, it's all like Play Online defines what it is to play online games, and that's all. And it's like this whole thing where it shows the whole world obsessed with Play Online, and I'm like, are you out of your mind? Like, what are you talking about? Like, people just walk. I mean, some of it was prescient in the sense that everybody's looking at their phones playing like Tetramaster or whatever that stupid card game that was the only other thing you could play on Play Online. Other than Final Fantasy 11, but like, it was that kind of weird, detached hubris that has always has defined Square's attitude towards everything from like really 2000 or so on. And as disturbing as some of the excess consolidation can be right now, Like, the idea of someone competent buying Square is like the idea of like Sony being in charge of what happens with Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy. Like, that's kind of exciting to me.
Yeah, I
Like,
could see that.
Like,
They
there's
become
so much
first-party
potential in
studios.
those IPs they have, and if someone competent could finally get their hands on them, imagine a Final Fantasy or a Kingdom Hearts made by the company that knows how to make God of War,
right?
Or knows how to make even Forspoken or anything.
It might matter to me again.
Yeah, some actual production value, some actual global, like an eye towards a global audience. Like there's a lot of potential there, and and I know even with, out from under Square's shadow, like there's going to be Embracer and other investors that are going to be like, they're going to see the potential of Tomb Raider. They're going to want to jump in on this Tomb Raider thing and really make it something special again. Like, absolutely, we might even see Legacy of Kain again, for God's sake.
I wouldn't hold my breath.
Wouldn't hold my breath for that, but it's also not impossible. It was before.
Is there a sense, Matt, that if these studios could,
at the very least, we might get a fucking collection?
Yeah. Is there a sense, Matt, for you that if these studios couldn't do well with the Marvel IP, that maybe
no. Because the Marvel IP stuff was business errors, not development errors. That was not a creative error. That was, I mean, I don't know if we're ever going to find out whose idea it was that Avengers should be a game as a service, like Marvel's or Disney's or Square's. Maybe it was everybody's. Maybe everybody thought that was a good idea, but that's not Crystal Dynamics' fault, and it's not the Avengers' fault. We like the campaign just fine. Like if you'd made a Guardians of the Galaxy style thing with that would have been great. It probably would have done really well. Guardians probably would have done a lot better if the stink of Avengers wasn't on.
Yeah, that's possible.
It's that's mismanagement. It's not bad ideas or bad development. Like that's all on Square. Like I
Are you confident that Square is the one who decided to make it a game as a service, though?
I don't know, but I think everyone involved probably learned a lesson.
Yep,
so
that's for sure. I think a lot of it may have just come down to numbers for Square Enix. As you mentioned, they lost $200 million on the two games, the Marvel game, or the two Marvel games, basically.
It's just amazing that you end up, you do that, and your short-sighted nonsense solution to that is to sell off two of the surest things you own if you actually were able to see them realistically. But, or maybe they finally are admitting to themselves, like, we don't know how to manage a Western studio, and we're just confused by all this, and so it'd be better to just sell it off and do our own thing. Especially if we've got the head of Square talking all about all this, crypto crap, and on top of that, talking about how they want to make stuff more focused on the Japanese market.
I mean, I would argue that the Western properties that they just sold, like Tomb Raider outsells almost all Square Enix's games.
Yeah.
Handily. I can't believe...
But they don't seem to have realistic expectations of it.
I mean, it is shocking to me, I'll admit, that the Final Fantasy VII Remake, at last count, had only sold like 5 million units.
Yeah, I mean, that was a year and something ago. I'm sure it's more now,
I mean, it sold... okay, let's say it sold 7.
Probably closer to 7.
Still, that's terrible. For something that people had begged for literally like almost 2 decades. And then it comes out, it gets pretty damn good reviews, and it sells like that. Mm-hmm. And you have Tomb Raider that sells 12 million roughly with each installment, and that's not good enough. Mm-hmm. But Square Enix typically operates on like a 13 to 14% profit margin on most of its studios. And these studios, according to Square Enix, were operating at a 1 or 3% profit margin. And it just sounds to me like it was just a numbers game. But I feel like it's left Square Enix as a worse company, losing these studios and losing this IP.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly makes Square Enix almost completely unappealing to me.
Yeah.
Like, that was one of their saving graces, was they had stuff like Deus Ex and Tomb Raider in the stable.
Now, to be fair, there are some properties that it is going to continue working with. Just Cause, Outriders, and Life is Strange.
Mm-hmm. But those are contracted out, I think. I don't think those are owned.
Yeah.
The studios are not owned by them.
And then you wonder what's going to happen with IP like Sleeping Dogs. Like, who owns that now?
I mean, the answer to that is nothing.
Yeah.
There's never going to be another Sleeping Dogs, which sucks because Sleeping Dogs is great.
Yeah.
I've actually played Sleeping Dogs 3 times.
A new one, to me, would have a lot of promise because the first game showed a lot of promise, but it needs that extra level of development.
Yeah, it needs. I would love to play a Sleeping Dogs that takes real lessons from The Witcher 3 and in terms of like narrative design and Sifu in terms of combat design.
Yeah.
Like go, really, plus it on both of those levels, and I think you've got something even more special than you already had. I think Sleeping Dogs is a pretty special game.
Yeah.
It's one of the first open world games where I felt like there was equal levels of attention to detail at like the city size like scope level and the foot on the ground interacting with someone hand to hand level. Like every single, no matter how far you zoomed in or zoomed out in that game's gameplay, it felt like there was an equal amount of attention and care put into all of it.
Yeah,
which was super uncommon back then. It's not so much now, but I think Sleeping Dogs is the first game where I really felt like they'd nailed everything they were after at every level of the scope.
The other thing, too, is it appears that neither of these studios are going to have a new game for at least 2 years because Embracer said that we firmly believe the studios will excel under our operating model, and the studios will continue to break even for the upcoming 2 financial years, driven mainly by sales of the back catalog titles. So it's so weird. How does that
I think I am getting my Legacy of Kain collection. That's what I hear out of that. That's what I'm going with.
So it's so weird that like you have this game like Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, which maybe Embracer will now market it the way it deserves because it's evergreen. The game is still good and still interesting. So maybe there would be a second marketing push for that. But it's just interesting that you have this game that's been out there, and then all of a sudden the money that game is generating just gets pointed in a different direction and it starts going to this other company. It's really weird.
Yeah. I mean, that's buying stuff.
How does that work? Like,
you bought it.
Yeah, but like, who do you go to redirect the revenue for that? You have to go to all the retailers, all the partners, and like.
No, that would all be funneled into distribution accounts, and the distributors are the ones that would get the retail stuff, and the distributors are buying it from the publisher, and all that would mean is you are now paying a different publisher.
Yeah,
like that. You're paying Embracer now, and you're paying Embracer's account instead of Square's. That's all it is.
So this deal for me. Embracer, a
lot of change of address forms.
Yeah. This deal for me, Embracer's value goes up.
Yeah.
More than the $300 million, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
And Square Enix's value drops, I believe, more than the $300 million.
Yeah.
Because the potential now is less at Square Enix.
Yeah. You're basically looking at a company that is going to be held aloft by Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy now.
I mean, it went from a publisher where the crux of its development was focused on the most lucrative market to a publisher where the crux of its development is focused on a market that's dead or dying.
Right. Well, and also the other problem is, like, for all their expectations or unmet expectations or the problems of the Avengers or whatever, at least the output of Eidos Montreal and Crystal Dynamics was regular.
Yeah.
At least something regularly came out. Where the fuck is Final Fantasy 16?
We just got an update.
Where the fuck is Kingdom Hearts 4 going to come out? There's nothing dependable about their tentpole stuff in Japan. Like, this stuff at least comes out regularly.
I mean, Kingdom Hearts 4, like, I think it'll probably be out in 6 years.
Oh, I think you'll be able to buy that. I think that'll come out as a dual, like a PS6.
Like, how attractive is Square Enix for an acquisition? Like, I don't know if it is.
I think it's attractive if you're Sony.
Yeah.
Because you've got two franchises, Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest.
Yeah.
Where, like, those three are all very closely identified with PlayStation already.
They are.
And they're Japanese mainstays, so they're things that, like, you know, Sony's pretty happy with. It gives Sony an in to start talking to Disney again because, you know, on top of what they already have with Spider-Man. There's a lot of pluses if you're Sony because you know you can step in on this and start managing this like an adult. You know.
What about Nintendo?
I think Nintendo could do something cool with that stuff too, but I don't think they want it.
It's interesting though, because you say Final Fantasy is associated with PlayStation, and you're right. For the current generation of players, for most of them, they would say that. But for me, I associate Final Fantasy with Nintendo because I grew up playing Final Fantasy games on Nintendo platforms.
I mean, to me, like the best Final Fantasy is the Super Nintendo game Final Fantasy VI. But, like, that was 25 years.
But it's Nintendo we're talking about here. It remembers things like that.
Oh, sure, but Nintendo doesn't want this or need it. Nintendo already does everything Square can do better than Square. They have a better RPG lineup than Final Fantasy has been in forever. You don't need them. You don't need to bring in Final Fantasy when you're selling Xenoblade and Fire Emblem. I don't think they need their help for Disney stuff, for Kingdom Hearts. Like, I don't see what you...
That's kind of a match made in heaven, though, Nintendo and Kingdom Hearts. And
not really, though, because like you're going to basically have to start Kingdom Hearts 4 over. Yeah. Because it's Unreal Engine 5, and nothing Nintendo's going to put out is going to run that.
Yep. So,
I would argue that while Nintendo certainly could do something interesting with... Also, a lot of Square's better... lower profile games over the last 5 years have been on the Switch. Mm-hmm. You know, like their actual interesting Japanese output has been on the Switch.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
But you could equally put Octopath Traveler on any platform.
Oh yeah,
you know, like you don't need that to be on the Switch.
Yeah,
you know, and indeed, there's a PC version of that, I think, isn't there? So yeah, like I don't see a downside to that, like in terms of Nintendo buying them. I just don't think Nintendo needs it or wants it. Nintendo is very picky about who they put in their stable, and I also feel like Nintendo probably doesn't want to bother having to clean up the mess that is Square, you know, and I think Sony would.
It is a mess. There's no doubt about it.
Sony needs it more than Nintendo does, that's for sure.
Vincent is asking, if Sony bought Square, do you think they'd keep the biggest stuff like Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, Dragon Quest multi-platform like they are with Bungie's stuff?
No.
But isn't it, according to Pactor, it's, if you want the deal to go through, you kind of have to. If people have expected those games on their platform, that you kind of have to keep making them for that platform.
No, you don't. I don't know why anyone would think that. I know there's a contract in place, but there's no contract that says Kingdom Hearts 4 has to be on an Xbox.
There's some kind of, I don't know. Yeah, I'd have to go back and watch the episode again. But Pactor explained it that the FTC will look for things like that. That any IP that had currently been on those platforms, like Call of Duty, that's why he says Call of Duty is going to remain on PlayStation platforms, because it had been on PlayStation for so long. And while you could say we're taking it away, if you do that, then the argument, the fight with the FTC is going to get really dirty, and you're raising the chances of the deal being basically nixed. So what Pactor says is that when you look at, like, if you're trying to quantify risk, sometimes it's better, okay, like for instance, like Bethesda. Like a lot of its game, he believes a lot of Bethesda's IP is going to remain on PlayStation except for Starfield, because Starfield's a new IP and it never appeared on PlayStation before.
Anyone who thinks Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be on PlayStation is out of their goddamn mind. Not a chance.
Well,
like,
by the time that comes out, there will be a lot of time has passed as well.
Well, by the time Kingdom Hearts 4 comes out, a lot of time.
That's true.
I mean, like, I don't think Final Fantasy 16, if Square bought them if Square got bought by Sony this year, I don't think Final Fantasy 16 would suddenly become a PlayStation exclusive.
Yeah.
I think they would go forward with that. Although it's also worth remembering that Starfield was going to be on everything too.
It was initially.
Yeah, it was going to be on PlayStation.
But he's saying but it hadn't been released for it ever.
Right, but that doesn't really matter. Here's the thing. I mean, I guess from a risk perspective, in the sense that, like, I mean, that's only a risk perspective in the sense that the FTC doesn't know what the fuck they're doing.
Exactly, that's what he was saying.
And like, but the thing is with like Elder Scrolls, that's a harder thing. But with like Final Fantasy, you could Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest to some degree, you could just go back and be like, these used to be PlayStation exclusives for years, and we're just taking them back. And that would probably fly too.
Yeah.
The other thing you have to remember is, like, and this is a harder argument to make with people that don't understand what video games are probably, but there is no such thing as antitrust when it comes to IP.
I know,
like, there's no such thing as you have too many successful ideas. Like, that isn't a thing.
That's not a thing.
You know, you do not. It's not something. You know, you do not have an automatic right as a consumer to all IPs on the device you buy, and otherwise, you know, you wouldn't have had the thing where Avatar could only be sold with TVs for the first 2 years it was on Blu-ray. Like, that's not a thing. And, like, yes, Sony might, like, you know, obviously you're sort of dealing with taking the path of least resistance when it comes to Call of Duty. The other thing to remember is Call of Duty is so much bigger than anything Square has. Like,
it is an exception. It's an anomaly.
An institution, and it has been on every system every year on a yearly basis for 15 years. Like, that is a completely different thing than this series Final Fantasy that gets one release every, like, 5 years is going to only be on PlayStation now.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you don't have problems with that, if you do have problems with that, you'd be like, okay, well, Final Fantasy Remake is still on PlayStation and PC. Never came to Xbox so far. No one's suing us over that. Like, what, you know, it's, I just don't. It's a non-issue. It's an absolute non-issue. Like, I just don't think. And also, Square isn't big enough for the FTC. You know, Activision is a juggernaut. Like, yeah, that's the other thing. Like, the comparison to the Activision.
Well, the FTC may not be involved because isn't Embracer from Europe?
Yeah.
And then you're buying stuff from a Japanese
I'm talking about Sony
publisher.
buying Square.
Oh, okay. Got you.
And the FTC would be involved to some degree probably because they have branches here. Like, they are in one form.
They're incorporated in the United
States.
States.
America. They have incorporated branches in America. So there would be a conversation about that. There will not be one with Embracer probably. Also, Embracer's not big enough. You're just buying studios. You're not buying a publisher. That's kind of, the publisher does add something, but like the fact that it's Call of Duty is part of the worry there. It's just like Call of Duty's so big that even, you know, when you're dealing with something that even an FTC person would probably have heard of, or at least knows their kids play it, then you're in a different territory than like what's Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Some weird
I mean, that
kid
would be
from
worth it
Jersey
just to
who
hear
didn't
someone
fit in.
explain what
The
Kingdom
kids
Hearts
in
is to
Kingdom.
like a federal
We did
employee.
this.
Like,
Yeah.
that'd be fun. Sum that one up.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
And the Avengers.
That'd be funny.
Just sit around
and that would
and
all, some of the
do
Kingdom
nothing.
Hearts thing would also come down to Disney. If Disney wants it on every platform, then we'd probably be stuck with that.
Yeah.
That's probably they would. Disney has more pull over that decision than the FTC. I promise.
How do you think that Square Enix's president being infatuated with the blockchain, AI, and the cloud?
Oh, that's inviting your doom in by the front door.
I mean, that means that if you get
That's
acquired,
what's-
you're basically being fired, right?
I mean, but what they're doing there is they're going to, you know, if he really continues to lean into that, they're going to have their first initiative on that, and that is what's going to sink them so far. They're going to have to sell themselves.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how I see this going.
This guy, he won't listen
And if
to
you're
anyone.
Sony, you're going to be like, we're just going to wait until they hurt themselves again, and then we're going to buy them for even less damn money.
That was my next question. If you're someone looking to acquire Square Enix, do you now wait for this strategy to play out? Because chances are you're probably going to be able to get Square Enix at an even better discount.
Yeah. Yeah.
How much do you think the Final Fantasy IP is worth, Matt, all on its own?
I don't know. I think that depends where you are.
I mean, just in general, $3 billion probably?
Billion. I was going to say like 300 million.
Really? Final Fantasy?
Yeah. That you find me a Call of Duty brother knows what Final Fantasy is. It's not.
Yeah, they
It's
do.
not. As
Everybody
big.
knows what. Everyone's heard of Final Fantasy.
Not really. Not casuals.
Really?
No. I mean, you've heard of Final Fantasy VII if you were around at that time in '97, I guess. But like most people do not think about Final Fantasy. You know.
Now you got to remember, Bungie was just purchased for $3.6 billion. Mm-hmm. I mean,
Bungie makes money
Square makes money
every 5 to 7 years when one of these things.
I mean,
finally
I think
gets
Final
squeezed
Fantasy
out.
is probably worth $2 billion.
There's no way in hell Final Fantasy is worth more than $1 billion.
I don't
Not
know,
a chance.
man.
Not a chance. Not a chance.
So do you think Square Enix as a whole would sell for less than $2 billion?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like $1 billion would be my limit almost. On
Wow.
that. Especially after.
I think they'll sell for more than that.
After the
even
NFT
if they crap out with this
after
NFT
the
stuff.
NFT debacle, like, yeah, honestly, like, yeah, no, I don't see it. I don't see it. Like, no, Final Fantasy is not worth that kind of money at all. At all. Not
I
a
don't know, man.
chance.
It's been around a long time.
It doesn't sell like it.
Yeah. I mean, I was shocked to see how little Final Fantasy VII Remake sold, so maybe I should listen to my own advice.
I mean, Bethesda was overvalued at the what was that, $4 billion?
What
How
was?
much Bethesda?
Yes.
$4 billion?
Yeah.
How many copies does Skyrim sell?
Yeah,
Way
a
more
lot.
than any Final Fantasy ever has.
Yeah. That's
So,
true. Yeah.
Like, and that was overpriced, I would say. That was a lot of money to pay for Bethesda.
There was a lot of IP there, though.
Yeah, but a lot of
more
IP
than
that
Square
doesn't
Enix.
do anything.
Yeah.
Just like Square.
And, yeah.
Square's got 2 reliable IP globally: Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
and that's it.
Because Dragon Quest is pretty much Japan only.
Yeah, I mean Dragon Quest is
Yeah.
successful, but it ain't like
It'll sell $1 million.
It ain't
or
God of
two
War.
here. Yeah.
You know, you're talking. When you're Sony and you're going in on your purchase price on this, you're looking like our stuff sells 20 million.
Mm-hmm.
What do you got?
Yeah.
Like your 15-year awaited remake of the biggest Final Fantasy ever sold 5 million copies.
Yeah. I hear it. I hear it.
So, like, why am I paying $2 billion for that? You're out of your mind at that point.
Sneaky says, I can back you up. Never heard of Final Fantasy until 7 was on PlayStation Plus. But Sneaky, you're weird, dude. Like, didn't he say he'd never heard of, like, Nintendo or something?
Yeah, no, Sneaky is weird in the sense of someone who sits every week in a video game podcast live, but he's not weird in terms of normal people who just like video games and don't pay attention to the industry. Like, tons of people don't know what Final Fantasy is or would be like, oh, that's that game with the guy with the sword from, like, when we were in college.
Yeah.
Like, that's about as far as
But
it
it's
goes
weird
for
that he
most
says he
people.
doesn't know this stuff and his name is Sneaky Solid Snake. Like, how do you know who Solid Snake is then?
I mean, that's true. But everybody has.
what
I mean,
the
I
hell?
would argue Metal Gear is about on the same level.
Yeah. He also asked, and we'll answer his question, when you buy the IP, what about toys and statues? Do you get the money from that too? Yes. You license out that
if you own that IP,
yeah, you can license that out to toy manufacturers,
so
and
they're going to get all the big profits from that $14,000 Final Fantasy VI statue. Yes, that's anyone who buys Square is going to get that.
yeah.
Congratulations.
Big TDRK asked, did Final Fantasy 11 and 14 do they make money? Yeah, they
14
do.
definitely
Yeah.
does, and I assume 11 must still make some because it's still alive.
Right, they haven't closed it down yet. Yeah.
I mean that's a long running MMO right there. Also, Final Fantasy 11 must cost about 15 cents a month to keep going.
Yeah, you would think. Noxiatornitis says, I didn't know what Final Fantasy was until Final Fantasy 9 or 10. That makes sense.
I mean, 10 was a breakout. I mean, and again, like, I would say, like, 7 really made it, like, at the time, kind of, for a gamer group, made it, like, a household name for people who owned a PlayStation. And 10 was a big deal on the PS2. And it really hasn't been a big deal again since then. Like, you know, like Final Fantasy 13 didn't sell badly, but like it didn't really make a big impact. And then they just stuck with 13 for so damn long.
Yeah.
Like, and then by the time 15 came out, it was a giant mess and no one knew what they were looking at. And now, like, we're kind of looking at 16 to see if they can even get their feet back.
But 15 sold very well, I remember. I thought it sold like 12 or 13 million when it was all said and done.
That's a shame if it did.
I think it did.
What a piece of shit.
Maybe somebody can Google that and figure it out real quick.
Like, that seems like a lot. I mean,
I was surprised.
I mean, maybe it did total because at one point it was like $5.
I mean, all games do that, though.
Not all
But
of
I
them.
do remember being surprised at how well it sold, considering what I considered the quality of the game. I felt like it outsold what it should have. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was
9.8 million copies.
So like 10 mil.
It's about 10 million.
That's pretty good.
That number's from November last year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's not very good for a IP you seem to think is worth $2 billion.
Well, I mean, when you buy something, and I mentioned this on Good Morning Gaming today, you basically pay for 7 times revenue for annual revenue. So when you buy a company, you look at how much revenue that company generated for the last 5 years, I think, and you take an average of it. Then you multiply that by 7, and that's ballpark for what you should pay. But with the games industry, it's harder to do it that way because some games, like Kingdom Hearts, comes out once every 8 years or something like that. So the calculations are a little harder to make. But 10 million is nothing to scoff at. I mean...
No, but as Vincent says, that was what Square listed at 10 million listed it as the break-even number. Mm-hmm. And that was obviously not even that number because
which is
a
insane.
lot of those sales are super deep discount because the Royal Edition was like $5 for a couple years during sales. And like that's the 4th best-selling Final Fantasy of all time.
Yeah.
So, I don't think that IP is really... I mean, people know the words maybe, but they don't buy them.
Yeah. Because the games aren't that great.
No, they're not.
But you do wonder
there are 2 Final Fantasy games I would call great games, and they are years apart.
Yeah.
6 and 12 are the 2 that I would consider great. I know I'm in a minority on 12, but I really like 12.
I like 12.
And I really like...
9. I think 9's great.
9's good. I really like Ivalice. I really like the Ivalice stuff, and I think it's a shame that they got rid of that team. Like,
I do wonder, though, if you're Sony and you're looking at buying Square Enix, and to what your point earlier, where you're like, hey, imagine Sony's teams kind of getting behind Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts and actually kind of getting them up to scratch. If you're Sony, maybe you look at there's more possibility in owning that IP, knowing that you can improve them.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, I'm not saying they couldn't be worth that if they were handled by competent people.
Yeah.
Like, Sony could totally turn Final Fantasy into a $2 billion IP, no question.
Yeah.
But they're not going to pay that. Like, there's no.
Yeah, because then you're charging yourself for all the work you're about to do.
Yeah, like maybe if Final Fantasy was popular and selling, in terms of like equivalent ratios as it was on the PS1.
Yeah.
But they haven't done that in 20 years.
Yeah.
Like it's, and the fact that a 10 million seller after that many years on the market is their 4th biggest selling game in the franchise, like that's not great. Like that's a franchise that has not grown with the rest of the industry. And I don't know even the fans of the series, I don't think would disagree with that.
Our chats, a lot of people talk about their favorite Final Fantasy. I mean, our audience definitely knows what Final Fantasy is. That's for sure.
I would expect that.
There's no doubt about it. But still, another bombshell, Matt. Where is this all ending? I think Ubisoft is next. We talked about that in last week's show. Like, it seems like it's the next one that's going to be...
Yeah, the gears are turning on Ubi. That's for sure.
Where is this going to end? Or is it going to end until everything's snatched up?
It's probably going to end with the 3 big hardware manufacturers owning all these major publishers or owning pieces of them.
Yeah.
And then smaller studios, indie studios, or things like Embracer and THQ Nordic are going to grow to fill those niches.
Embracer might buy Ubisoft.
That could happen.
They're a European company.
The other thing that could happen with Ubisoft is they could interplay it. They could just sell everything off.
Like
So,
the individual IP.
So like one company would get Assassin's Creed, another would get
Watch Dogs,
another
yeah.
would get Rabbids, that kind of thing. I could see that happening.
Interesting.
And
Anyway.
if I'm Sony and that happened, I would very seriously consider Rabbids.
Yeah, and Nintendo would probably want to
Nintendo would be interested in Rabbids too, because Nintendo as well, because there are two reasons. Because Rabbids would work really well both on Nintendo's hardware and kind of how they want to do games, but Rabbids would also be a useful thing for VR with Sony, and both Sony and Nintendo have their hands in making movies out of their video game IPs now, and Rabbids is already in production for stuff, pre-production for stuff like that. But Rabbids is something that I think is easy to pitch to movie studios.
Oh yeah,
I don't.
It's like Minions, basically.
Yeah, you're just like it's Minions but Rabbids.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
you also, obviously, Nintendo and Ubisoft have worked together on Mario plus Rabbids, 2 games now.
And also remember that Nintendo is already in bed with Universal, who owns the Minions.
Yeah.
And they could very easily do a Minions Rabbids movie.
That's true.
Which seems like kind of
Rabbids
perfect.
versus Minions.
Yeah.
It's like Secret Wars.
And
Rabbids versus
whoops,
Minions.
Rayman is a national character all of a sudden. Like,
yeah, it's possible.
Weirder things have happened, folks.
Yep.
Wait until that Gex collection hits. It's gonna 2020s is the decade of the Gex.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So anyway,
Dana Gould, we're gonna call you soon.
The industry is just turned into this like amoeba that is just constantly like morphing and gaining something from one side and pulling it in. And
I mean, it's survival.
It is.
It's like the costs of things and the international trade market is fracturing. There's a big
now's the time to buy.
Well, if you think anything's ever going to get better again,
yeah.
I mean, it's time to buy if you're a multinational conglomerate who has the money to throw around for acquisitions like that. It's probably not time for us to buy anything.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a big scandal in board games this week, where this company called CMON, which stands for Cool Mini or Not, they make big Kickstarter games that are like tons of miniatures and they do a lot of IP stuff. So they do a game called Zombicide, which some people have probably heard of, where it's like, you're fighting zombies on a map, but it's very modular, and they do tons of expansions. So they did a version of that on Kickstarter earlier this year called Marvel Zombicide, which is Marvel Zombies, but plugged into that, and it was huge. It's like $700 to get everything.
Jeez.
There's like literally 1,001 miniatures if you buy everything,
Wow.
including a Galactus that's like this tall.
Huh.
And so what happens with the Kickstarter board game stuff is you pledge to the thing, they take your money, and then usually a few weeks or a few months later, they put up a pledge manager that you go through and finalize your order and pay the shipping. Mm-hmm. And the shipping, because of all the weird shipping problems and China and manufacturing stuff and how many shipping containers are gone, and in Europe is even worse with VATs, the shipping for these things turned out to be double what the estimate was during the Kickstarter. So there are people who have already spent $700 on this, and to ship them where they need them to go, like especially if you're in Australia or somewhere, $300-$400. Like there are people who are paying almost over half the value of the item
in the shipping
to ship them.
Is there any way to get out?
You can cancel it, but you lose 10% of your pledge.
So you'd lose $70 or whatever.
You lose $70, but like a lot of people are.
Still, that sucks.
But
That's $70.
Yeah, but CMON is not doing anything about it because they say it's not. No, and the other thing is like they don't ship until like July next year at the earliest. So you're like, why don't you wait and charge shipping in a year
when it's cheaper?
When it might be cheaper because it's probably going to get. But like, so there's a whole thing with like, people are backing out of even doing Kickstarters anymore because of it, and like it's a whole debate. But like that stuff is going to hit, and eventually that kind of shipping stuff is going to start hitting produce and food. And
I mean, it already
goods.
kind of is.
It is, but it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
And there might come a time where we really don't care who's buying Ubisoft because we're busy knife fighting over that Mountain Dew that I talked about before.
That head of lettuce. Yeah. Things are volatile right now, pretty much across the board. So we'll see how it all goes. But as of right now, Embracer got, I think everyone can agree, a good deal on what it purchased. It certainly didn't overpay for what it got. And to me, it just leaves Square Enix as this. It kind of is just, they should just drop the Enix now and just go right back to just being Square again. Because it feels like went retrograde right back to the way they were in like the early mid 90s. It's just when the market at home has shrunk the way it has in Japan, this just seems idiotic to me. To cut off the part of your company that, in my opinion, at least had the opportunity for growth. I'm flummoxed by this whole thing. But look, if that means we'll get Tomb Raider games more often, or maybe they revive Deus Ex and it's actually something I enjoy this time, that's cool. But I don't know what the heck Square Enix is doing. That president, if he did this really just to get into NFTs and crap like that, he's going to end up being fired.
Yeah, there's a I mean, I don't think it is, but there is a point where you're looking at this and it's hard to, like, are you doing this on purpose?
Right.
Like, are you tanking this?
Are you trying to kill your company? Like, I don't know. Like, it just seems obvious, like an obviously terrible decision. I don't know. But anyway, there you go. That's Square Enix, at least a big part of it, bought by Embracer. And it looks like we won't see another Tomb Raider for at least 2 years based upon what Embracer said. So it seemed like we're kind of due for that already, but...
Well, we only just started hearing that they're working on a new one. So.
Well, Crystal Dynamics also is helping on Perfect Dark, the new Perfect Dark, which apparently Embracer's like, yeah, you can keep working on that. I don't know why Square Enix said that was okay. Why would it let one of its studios go work on someone else's game? The whole thing is just bonkers. But we got to move on. Next up, we're going to talk about a game that I just got, but it feels like a game that I played back in 2006, and that is Nintendo Switch Sports. Matt, have you played this at all?
No.
You haven't?
Nope.
Why is that?
Well, A, I didn't realize it came out because I don't care. And B, just to go back to I don't care.
Did you enjoy Wii Sports back in the day?
Yeah, I liked it okay, but I liked it as like a party game with people.
Mm-hmm.
That is obviously not how I play games anymore.
Yeah.
No. And also, like, I am very unimpressed by how the Joy-Cons work as motion controllers. So, yeah, I'm not really willing to spend money on this, and Nintendo ain't sending me free copies of anything. So, yeah, I don't need this in my library.
Well, this is basically the same damn game. I'm not even, like, 16 years later, it's very hard for me to see many differences between this and what I played way back then. Other than the fact that you can play everything online against other people.
Much fancier me, though.
Yeah, well, so that's the thing. On my Wii, I had megatons of Miis. And they were like celebrities. Like anything that I played on my Wii, I was playing with like Hulk Hogan and Barack Obama and all these celebrities and these characters from pop culture, because people would go and create Miis and you just have to download them. It was very easy. The marketplace was there. You could grab stuff, and your games ended up being filled with all these people from pop culture, and it was funny seeing some of these characters put in these weird positions that you normally would never see them in. Mm-hmm. You can't really do that with this game. Like, I have no Miis on my Switch. Do you?
I think I do have my original one on there somewhere.
I don't. I can't even find my original Mii.
I wouldn't know where to look. No,
yeah.
I don't know.
And so, for instance, like my wife, back when Wii Sports came out in 2006, she played the crap out of Wii Sports. She played bowling, she played tennis, she loved it. But it's a big part of the allure for her was she was in the game. She had her Mii that looked just like her, and it was her playing with all these celebrities and all these wacky sports. She loved it. I could not get her to even try this. The character creation in this is something that you unlock as you play.
How is the animation on the original Wii Sports for bowling better than this?
I don't know.
What is that? The ball just popping off.
I'll get to that stuff. But it's like, my wife was like, "Well, where am I?" I'm like, "Well, we don't have you yet. Like, I have to earn like the haircut, so you can use the haircut, so you can make it." It's so dumb. Like, to me, that was a huge part of the allure of the original Wii Sports, was the Miis, and my Mii, and my wife's Mii, and all that stuff is basically gone. Or you have to dig deep to try to find it. Like, unlocking the parts that you need to actually make yourself takes a long, long time, because the way the unlocks work in this is when you level up, it takes you to this panel that has like 10 different things on it, and you choose which panel you want, and then it just randomly cycles around and you get something random from that panel. So even if you see something, oh, there's my haircut, or there's my eyes, or whatever that I need to actually make my Mii, the chances of getting it, you have to keep playing the game to get that stuff. It's not immediately accessible. That, to me, is mistake.
Yeah, that's dumb.
Number one. It's like they missed a complete...
Like that has to be pick up and play for anybody who wants to make themselves look however they want. Like, that's the whole point.
It's like they completely went over their head.
That was like standard beginning of party thing. Everybody make a me.
Yep.
Dun, 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 dun. There you go. Like 10 minutes later, everybody's done.
Everyone's got their character, and they're playing in all the sports. It's gone in this. It's really weird. It went completely over their head. One of the big draws of playing Wii Sports. I don't get it. So my wife was not interested in playing this. To your point, and I'll get more detailed on each of the sports here in a minute, but to your point about the Joy-Con not being much better with motion controls is point on point. Like, I see no improvements playing these sports with the Joy-Con than I did playing with the Wii Remote. Particularly after...
That was a good spare, though.
Yeah, that's the best spare, man. That's one hell of a spare. Watch this. Uh-huh. That's me, too. I did that. I was shocked. I was like, oh my god, it's the best spare I ever got in Wii Bowling. But anyway, it is no different playing this with the Joy-Cons than it was playing with the Wii Remotes way back in the day. Like, there are... like motion-specific things. Like in bowling, when you roll it, you can turn your wrist over to create spin. It's hard to do, and I think really hard to get accurate, but you can do it. In tennis and badminton, like, it's really more of the timing of when you hit the tennis ball or the shuttlecock, depending on as far as like the placement of the ball is concerned. And then to do topspin or backspin, you hold buttons to do that. So, you know, the motion controls in that are pretty negligible. For most of the sports in this collection, the waggle controls or the motion controls are really just like binary on and off. It's basically just you're just waggling it where you could just hit a button is what my point. And you were asking earlier about bowling and how like the ball, it looks awkward. Well, because the game does a terrible job of teaching you how to play the game. So for the first, I don't know, hour that I played this, like I would hold the Z right when I wanted to start like the whole process of rolling the ball, and then I'd do the motion of pulling it back and then pulling it forward, and then I'd release the Z right button like I'm using a real bowling ball. You let go of the bowling ball. Well, no, you're supposed to hold on to the Z right button, and nobody has figured this out. So what happens is either the ball just drops at your feet, or the ball will start rolling halfway down the lane, and then it'll just disappear, and you have to start over. Like, it doesn't register the rolls. It's weird. You cannot use the Pro Controller in this at all. You have to use the Joy-Con. There's no feature for the Pro Controller. So if you thought you could maybe skirt around it. Now, there are some sports you can play sitting down if you want to, if you don't want to sit down, but it does get awkward and a little weird. I ended up just standing up to play it, like pretty much the whole time. So there's 6 sports. Boxing is coming in the fall. There's volleyball, soccer, sword fighting, badminton, tennis, and bowling. Volleyball, a pleasant surprise, I will say. Like, I thought this was going to be the dumbest sport. It's actually one of the funnest. It just follows the typical pattern of volleyball, bump, set, spike, where, you know, the other team hits the ball, you bump it up, your teammate then sets it, and then you jump up and spike it, or maybe you're the second person in that chain, and the first person bumps, your teammate bumps it, you set it, and they spike it. But, like, there's a lot of action in this. You can actually control where your character is on the court. You can, like, go left or right, although the game does a pretty good job of doing that all on its own. But, like, when you go to spike a ball, you hit up with the Joy-Con once, so you jump up, and then you hit it down again to actually spike it, and the timing of that is very important as to whether you actually end up getting them in bounds or not. I really liked volleyball. I thought it was a lot of fun and more fun than I expected it to be. It does feel a little random as far as whether the balls go in or not, and I feel like this game in general is kind of like that. Even the tennis, I feel like it's just like, it just tells you whether or not you're going to be able to get it in or not. It's really not a lot that you do.
That was a very questionable in.
Right, exactly. Like, I was shocked that was in. It seemed like it jimmied it. Didn't you think?
Yeah, that looked weird.
It looked like it was going out of bounds blatantly.
I don't think I need realistic ref, like, errors in Wii Sports.
Yep. But to me, this was a pleasant surprise. I didn't think I would like volleyball, and I ended up liking it a lot.
So is this online play?
This is all online play, yeah. A lot of the sports, too, are entirely dependent upon lag. Because they're all timing-based. Tennis. I feel like I won or lost most of my matches either because I had lag or the other player had lag.
Yeah.
Because all it takes is one little blip of lag in tennis, and suddenly your guy up front is swinging, and your guy in back doesn't have enough time to then swing the second time.
Oh, that was out. Okay.
What?
That last shot, I was like, how was that in? Oh, no, it was out.
Oh.
It was out.
Badminton. You think it's a lot like tennis? It's not. And in fact, I think badminton is more strategic and more reliant on player skill than tennis is. Now, in badminton, obviously, the shuttlecock can never hit the ground, so you don't get that bounce or whatever. There's no margin for error. But it's more reliable as far as what you're doing as the player because you control your shots with, like, buttons. So, like, your smash shot or your quick shot or your drop shot in this, it's not like relying on the motion controls to do it. You hold a button to do it.
Oh, imagine that.
Yeah, and it's more reliable that way. And it actually
Who
feels...
could have guessed?
It actually feels more strategic and more like who's better at it is actually the one who ends up winning. The rallies are longer. The game, I just found it to be way more intense. Like, essentially what you're trying to avoid while you're playing badminton in this is not hitting the ball like way up in the sky. Because if you do that, your opponent then can spike. And that's pretty much point over. It's really hard to return a spike in this. But you can also stagger the opponents. So if you hit it on them and they're too late to react, it'll stagger them and they'll be kind of out of sorts. And that, I think the trail on the shuttlecock turns like blue or whatever. And that's your cue to like spike it or whatever.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of fun playing badminton. It was one of the favorite things that I played in this. And I thought it was just going to be an also ran from tennis. I enjoyed this more than tennis. The other part of tennis, too, is having the guy up front and the guy in back. And again, if you get that little lag spike, it's like your guy up front will try to hit, or maybe he does hit the ball when you don't want him to, and he ends up returning it and like putting it out of bounds or whatever. So I actually like badminton more than tennis, and I don't know if I'm an anomaly in that way.
Also, there have been some really good tennis games, and I feel like there haven't been quite as many badminton games. So you're sort of like you're up against harder competition when you're trying to like make a good tennis game here.
Yeah. Returning back to bowling. Bowling in this, when you play online, is like an elimination where you're in a big tournament and there's like a cut line. So after every like 3 frames or so, they cut like the bottom however many people off until at the end for the very final set of frames, there's only 3 of you left. And it is also not ruined by lag. And also, bowling is where you get most of the points to level up. Like, if you have a good round of bowling, you'll end up earning like 150 points or whatever. A lot of these events, even if you win them, you'll only win like 30 or 40 points. So if you're looking to unlock cosmetics or any of the other stuff that you unlock in this, like you end up unlocking the cosmetics, you unlock these stickers that you can use as kind of like chat. You just hold the R button, you can see on the top right of the screen there, and it brings up 4 options, and it's just basically your way of reacting to what's happening in the game. You can unlock more of those. You can unlock... eventually, you unlock in bowling, like a special mode where the lanes are like wavy, or there's obstacles on the lanes.
So is this just Rocket League?
It is, yeah. But this game, you actually have tons of control. I was also pleasantly surprised by soccer, honestly. Because you can actually control movement 100%, your character's movement. And you have a turbo that builds back up over time. It's on like a cooldown. You can pass to your teammates holding one of the buttons. You can do like if you slam both of the Joy-Cons down, you do like a headbutt of the ball, and it's like the hardest way to shoot the ball. And then if you waggle left or waggle right, then you can kick the ball at a really direct angle left or right. I was also pleasantly surprised by soccer, honestly. I had a lot of fun playing this. It takes a couple matches to get the hang of it, and if you're playing against people who don't know what they're doing, it's really easy to win. I had found myself winning almost everything I played in this game, period, honestly. Like, almost every bowling outing, I finished in the top 3. I won almost every tennis match I played. I did win every badminton match I played. I won almost every volleyball match I played. I won almost every soccer match I played and was like the top scorer, like the MVP or whatever. I don't know if like everyone is playing this. They're a bunch of kids. Like, I don't know. But
they're a bunch of kids. I'd expect you to do worse.
Why? Oh, because they'd be really good.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a bunch of adults playing this.
It's all the Wii Sports people coming back and not having touched a controller in 15 years.
That's possible. That is absolutely possible. But soccer was a pleasant surprise. I actually had a lot of fun playing it. Tennis is probably the most robust of the 3 because there's 3 different courts that you can play on. There's clay, there's grass, and there's a hard court, and they all drastically alter how the ball plays and what the ball does. Obviously, on a hard court, the ball bounces more. On clay, it hardly bounces at all, and spin doesn't work that well on clay. And it does make kind of a big difference. But as I said, lag in tennis is a killer. And Nintendo Online still sucks, Matt. Mm-hmm. Like, I was okay with it, like, when it was free. But now that we're paying money for Nintendo Switch Online, it's got to be better.
Yeah.
There can't be as much lag as there is in this now at this point. Like, I play Splatoon every once in a while. It's hard to notice the lag in Splatoon all that much. It's kind of a loosey-goosey shooter, but in like playing tennis in this, like it's doom. It will doom your game if you get lag at the wrong time. And it's pretty prevalent. I'm disappointed in that. And I see Vincent in chat says the first match of each session is against bots. He's right. Like the first bowling match, it was hilarious. Like, literally, like people were the bots were just throwing the ball in the gutter. Like Nintendo cannot make bots. Like the ball would go 3 feet down the lane and go straight into the gutter because you can watch everyone else play and like finish each frame after you finish yours. You can sit and watch and like cycle through the different players. And literally, the bots were just throwing the ball straight into the gutter. I was like, "What is going on here?" And then I looked online and it said, "Yeah, your first match in anything is against bots." So yeah. Sanitize asking, there's no dedicated goalkeeper. Yeah, there is. I mean, no. You can assign someone on
I
your
guess
team.
You could stand there.
You can stand and play goal if you want to, but nobody wants to. And that's the problem.
It's Rocket League.
Yeah, it is like Rocket League. Although there are people who want to play goal in Rocket League. And really, if you want to be good at it, nobody should play goal in Rocket League.
No.
People should just be cycling in a cycle all the time. In this game, having a goalie would be a good idea, and nobody wants to play it. It's really weird. And then the sword fighting game it's really simple, obviously. You're just trying to whack the other guy off of the platform or the other person off of the platform, and it takes, best of 3 rounds, basically. But there's 3 different swords that you can use, and the swords do kind of switch up what you can do. Like, there's just a straight sword, there's, like, 2 swords you can fight with at once. But really, all you're doing is, like, if your opponent has his sword up guarding, you strike vertical. If your opponent has his sword horizontal blocking, you strike horizontal. That's really all there is to it. It's easily the worst of all the events in Nintendo Switch Sports. It's not even close. Soccer, I should also mention soccer. There's a mini game, basically a penalty shot mini game, and the game comes with like the strap you can strap around your leg straight out of like Ring Fit Adventure, and you have to use that if you want to play that mini game. But it was dumb and pointless. The game comes in like a box, so it's not just like shrink wrapped because they have to include the leg strap in with it. But the game does sell for $50, which at first I was like, oh, it's only $50, but then I realized like we got the last one for free.
True.
And this one, like, is it worth?
Well, unless you count Wii Sports Resort.
Right. This one
I also didn't buy.
Yeah. This one, is it worth $50? Probably not. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're not going to play online, it's not worth $10 because playing this by yourself is awful. There's really no reason to play it by yourself. You're just basically
that's Wii Sports.
It's same aesthetic basically. So if you don't play online or you don't have a Nintendo Switch online, do not buy this at all. Like, it would be the biggest waste of a purchase ever unless you have a big family where a lot of you guys are going to play local. But if it's just you, don't buy this. There's no single player anything in this. There's no campaign. It's not even like the first Splatoon where like they kind of half-ass trying to make a campaign. There's nothing at all. You just can play through the different sports. And once you get to a certain level in each of the sports, then you can become a part of the pro league for those sports. And that's when you start getting like rankings and you start playing against people who are ranked in the same kind of arena that you are. But the game never gives you the opportunity to go and look at your stats. Like, you cannot figure out like, what's my record in tennis? Is my record like 55 and 21? You can't, none of that information is in there. And even as you get into the pro leagues, you just go up the ladder in the pro leagues. It doesn't really give you a good readout of what your actual stats are and what you've been doing inside the pro league. So even for people who are going to play this online, like, I feel like the draw does become minimal after a very quick period of time. Like, all I did was play this online. My wife wouldn't play it. Yeah. And after a few days, I was like, I'm good. Like, I get it. Like, now if I had people over, would I pull it out and play? Yeah, I think I would. I think it would be a nostalgia thing for some people, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think some people will want to play just to...
I think people want to play, and then, like, I think, like, 20 minutes in, they'd be like, hey, could we play actual Wii Sports?
Yeah.
Like, the nostalgia would be like, oh, I'd rather just play that thing we used to play.
I mean, as far as the question of, is this better than Wii Sports or Wii Sports Resort? I struggle to say that.
Yeah. There's a simplicity to the original that is hard to beat.
There's a charm to it, too, because the graphics are just so crude and basic. that there's a charm to it. In this, it's like they've tried to make it look more realistic and not as bad, but I think it loses a little bit of that magic in the process. It just feels...
Yeah, it looks very generic to
It
me.
feels soulless.
Yeah. Well, also, like, it doesn't look like a Nintendo game to me.
No.
Like
It looks like ARMS to me.
Yeah,
Remember
a little bit
ARMS?
of that art style. Yeah, the faces have that look to them.
And I don't know if the ARMS studio actually worked on this or not, but that's what it kind of reminds me of.
Imagine they're not working on ARMS.
They're definitely not anymore. Yeah, that ship has definitely sailed. So
No, if you just showed this to me without I would have a hard time knowing this was not like some kind of generic like
rip off of Wii Sports.
Like it feels like something Namco would make.
Yeah, maybe Namco did make this.
I don't. Yeah.
And then ultimately, it's like, okay, what propels you to keep playing this if you're someone like me who doesn't have like a family with kids and stuff like that to play with? It's the unlocks, and the unlocks are just very uncompelling. You're unlocking stuff like this. Like, look how few customization options there are, Matt.
It's not much.
I mean, that's terrible. And this is what you start the game with. Look at how many hairstyles there are. Like, at first, Matt, I thought that I couldn't find the men's hairstyles. I was like, oh, I must have selected a female character because there's no men's hairstyles. And then I looked at it, I'm like, nope, there's just the one men's hairstyle. Like, that's it. Like, aren't all the others like women's? It looks like to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the second and fourth one are probably men's technically. The shaved on the side thing and the
Oh yeah, you're right.
Also, you can wear
With
your
the
hair however
stripe
the hell
shape.
you want.
Yeah.
But, like, that is like 6 hairstyles across all genders that is shocking.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure you unlock tons more playing the game, but
But
that
it
doesn't
takes
help
forever.
you. That doesn't help you when you're trying to like get other people to play and make characters that look like themselves.
Because you can't choose what you unlock. It's like
Yeah.
once you get a level, you choose a panel of like 10 things, and then the little cursor goes.
That's even weirder to me.
Yeah.
Like at the very least, you'd think you'd make it easy for me to get what I want or what other people that want to play with me want. That is a misunderstanding of how this all works on a level that I've rarely heard of.
Yeah. And because all I wanted like the Master Sword to play the sword fighting game, or I wanted a cooler tennis racket, but you can't select what you unlock. So instead, I ended up getting like goofy stickers or like dumb titles, like stuff that I don't care about. Like, I don't know. This game is definitely, I recommend against spending $50 for this. And unfortunately, as we say all the time on GameFace, waiting for Nintendo to lower the prices on its first-party stuff is a fool's errand generally. It just doesn't happen all that often. So I would really struggle unless you have a big family and you're going to play this locally. And in that case, if you've had kids since 2006 and they didn't play the original Wii Sports, they're probably going to love this, honestly. Because it's their first go-around with it. Mm-hmm. So if you do have a family and you have like 2 or 3 kids and you and mom are kind of into playing games together, this could be a good purchase. And in that scenario, I would probably say it's worth the $50. But anyone else, I would just stay away. It's just not worth the money. I'm disappointed, honestly. I really thought that with the Joy-Con, the motion-controlled stuff would be so much better. Like, I really thought that I would feel like I was in control of these sports a lot more than you are. And in the end, it just feels like a lot of the waggle is just a button.
Yeah.
You could do it with a button instead of...
I mean, that's how I felt about Waggle for forever.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, some games, obviously, that made good use of the Motion Plus, that was an exception.
Sure, but those are pretty uncommon, and they're also almost never multiplayer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Yep, they were almost always single player. So anyway, I'm sure some of you guys are probably maybe have a couple questions about this. And if you do, I'm willing to answer them. I've played a lot of it. Let's see if you guys have any questions for me about this game. Because there haven't been a lot of big games coming out. Sadly, this is like one of the big games right now. This is about as big as they've got for like the last 3 weeks. Vincent says, make sure they wear the wrist strap. I did not ever wear the wrist strap, but I guess you saw the video of the kid like on day one throwing his Joy-Con through his TV and breaking his TV. So it's a concern. I never did wear the strap though. Soulcorp says $40. It's not $40. It's $50.
It's $40 digitally.
Oh, so because you don't get the leg strap,
it's $10 more for that leg strap,
which is insane. Okay, so here's another pro tip: buy the digital version. Do not buy the physical version of this game, because the leg strap, the mini game that you use to play with it, is so dumb. It's not worth it. And the strap is literally probably cost Nintendo $1 to make. I'm not exaggerating. Congram says these characters look similar to Ball and Wonderworld. Well, you're going to see and hear shortly in a little bit later on in this episode just how accurate you are. And that is accurate, actually. Andy T. Monahan, you'd think better hardware would make performance more consistent. Yeah.
You'd think Wi-Fi wouldn't be faster than a wired connection, but
I played wired, by the
Switch.
way. All my footage was wired. But everyone else doesn't play wired. Everyone else plays Wi-Fi, so... no, it looks like no one has any questions. Fire Native, don't use a strap, but record it so we can all laugh when you destroy your TV. But see, that's the thing. The people who swing the Joy-Con that hard are doing it wrong. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't have to.
No, it's never...
Like, this is how I play tennis.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all you have to do. You don't have to, like, stand there and, like, get in a stance and, like, swing. Like, you literally just do this.
At no point do you need to take cover behind your couch.
No, to play Metroid.
To play Metroid.
So, a lot of these games you can sit down and play. Bowling is hard because you do have to get the Joy-Con down low, and it's a little weird. You might, like, hit your couch or the chair that you're sitting on or whatever. And I did end up standing to play most of this stuff just because I got tired of, like, sitting down and standing up, sitting down and standing up. But, yeah. Yeah, Cinetike, is it cheaper digital? It is. It's $10 less if you buy digital. And I would recommend that for pretty much everybody. Unless you're trying to use this as some kind of a fitness thing. Another thing I would add, this is not a fitness app. This is not going to get you in shape. You are not going to burn any calories playing this. Like, even the volleyball, it's like you just hit up and you hit down to spike. You hit up to set, you hit down to spike. Like, you don't get active while you're playing this stuff at all. Even the soccer game that you play with the strap on, like, you're just moving one leg. You're not, like, running in place and then running and, like, kicking or anything like that. It's nothing like that. So, pretty disappointed in this, to be honest, Matt. I really thought it was going to be better. I mean, it's been 16 years. You think they could improve on this stuff, but it's pretty much, it felt like the same game, but with less charm. Mm-hmm. And keep in mind, I think boxing is coming in the fall. I don't know why it would take them that long to release another game for this, because they're all so simple, but... Boxing
given how the sword fighting turned out, maybe they need some extra time for the one-on-one stuff.
That could be, because it is easily the worst of all the mini games. But boxing is coming in the fall. That actually might get you a workout. I remember the first Wii Sports, the boxing in it was probably the only thing that caused me to break a sweat, because you're just constantly punching. But in that case, get a Quest 2 and play Beat Saber. That's what I would argue. People are saying Big Dog Nintendo turning in half-finished homework. It's called milking it. Yeah. Andy T. Monahan, and golf isn't it.
No golf, no baseball.
Yeah. Yeah, what else is missing?
Archery. Wasn't there archery in
Yeah, I think there was. Or was that in Wii Sports Resort?
I think that was Resort.
Yeah.
Well, Resort had, like, archery and hang gliding. And,
yeah.
like,
I didn't like Wii Sports Resort.
I don't think I ever played it.
I did play it, but it was I thought it paled in comparison to the original.
I mean,
Wii
that's
Sports.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, Vincent says golf is coming in the fall, not boxing. Okay. Oh, and Mike's Q, thank you for Twitch Prime, man. Appreciate it. So anyway, there you go. That's Nintendo Switch Sports. I highly recommend against it unless you live in a big family and you're going to be playing this locally with kids who never were around for the first wave of Wii Sports. Okay, let's move on. We're going to talk next about E3. And we got a little bit of a surprise this week, Matt. We found out that Microsoft is actually going to have its E3 press conference. Same day, same time, same everything as it always has on June 12th, Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific, just like it always does. And are you surprised by that, first of all?
No. I mean, I expected at least some of them to still do some kind of presentation around that time, because you've probably been planning it anyway. You know, like... You can't, they canceled E3, but it's not like you can, like, not start on E3 until you find out for sure later. Like, you have to start on that in, like, November in some cases. So, like, the planning on that goes all year to some, there's that was kind of the conventional wisdom is like, oh, you plan for E3 all year, and then you plan for Christmas, and then as soon as Christmas is over, you plan for E3, And,
does this tell you that the ESA was not forward with what its plans were with some
I
of
think
these.
that's entirely possible.
Yeah.
Although, to be fair, Microsoft's not super involved anymore either.
Yeah,
the majority of their show is in their own theater across the street. Mm-hmm. And I will be interested to see if they call it an E3 press conference.
I don't know. They're
I
calling
wouldn't
it
imagine
the
they would.
Xbox and Bethesda
Showcase
Games
something.
Showcase. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, it's just they already have it kind of in their schedule and books to do a big thing in June, and they're just going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of that.
Okay, that was my next question. Do you think...
Maybe not on this scale, but like I think you're going to see, people are generally ready to show their new stuff in the summer. At the very least, there's a whole lot of fall schedule to fill in for almost every publisher. So,
do you think this might inspire other publishers to do the same, to have a press event?
No.
No?
you're either already prepared to do that by now, or you are not.
It's a little hard to, because we're in May.
Yeah,
and this is 5-6 weeks from now.
If you stuff that's shown at E3 has been prepared since Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
like it's this is not something they throw together in May.
Yeah,
like it's you plan for this half the year.
But did you think that maybe the publishers were planning on E3 happening this year, and maybe had started kind of down that road, and then the carpet got yanked out from underneath them by the ESA?
No, I mean I think they probably were aware, because at some point you have to pay your millions of dollars for your booth,
floor space,
and if you weren't being charged for that in January, you'd probably piece something together. Mm-hmm. But I think like everybody's ready for like a PR boost in the middle of the year, and there's nothing else coming out, so you might as well kind of use that. I mean, you don't need E3 to do that. You can reach everybody through Twitch or YouTube whenever you want. So, it makes sense to kind of have that be sort of a mid-year thing one way or the other. Maybe you stretch it out like Keely's doing with the Summer Games Fest. But, like, I think there will always be sort of an expectation and a comfort with doing some kind of, hey, this is other new stuff to look forward to sometime in June and July.
Yeah.
Just to kind of, at the very least, to kind of prime the pump for the holiday hype coming up.
Are you surprised that Microsoft is going ahead with it?
No, they
at the same day, time, and everything.
No, I mean they've already probably had on the schedule already.
Yeah, had already booked the venue, and
I mean it's their venue, but I'm sure they have a schedule to keep because other stuff happens.
Yeah, because everything else happens there. Yeah, the concerts and comedians.
It's like you've got that standing booking every year. You might as well keep it. I mean, who knows? We both certainly have experience with the fact that just because the company owns two things doesn't mean those two things work together very well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
If you've ever had to do anything. If you've ever had to shoot something at the Disney theme parks about another Disney thing, you are aware of how two things in the same corporation cannot and do not talk to each other.
Yeah. How do you think this is going to play into Jeff Keighley's Summer Games Fest?
That'd be fine,
Yeah.
Has he said anything about when
that's
happening?
What's going on? Like, it seems like we should know everything that's happening with that by now.
I don't know.
I mean, it almost sounds like the ESA threw Keighley for a loop. Like, he didn't expect it.
I mean, I think maybe he didn't. I mean, I think he knew something was coming, or maybe nothing, or less than something was coming. I don't know. But it does seem like because there's been no real schedule announcements that maybe he knows he can make it bigger now. Maybe he's like, oh, we can up this a little bit.
Yeah,
maybe that's what's happening. I don't know. Knowing that nobody needs to be at E3, or that maybe people were working on things for E3 and now they don't have an E3 to show it at. Maybe he's like, oh, I got to go around and ask everybody if they want to show what they were working on for E3 at our thing. Yeah. So like, you don't want to announce stuff. Maybe you don't want to announce the schedule until you can say what's in it to some degree.
Yeah.
So you might just be doing last minute booking stuff. Also, it's still over a month and a half away. Like he's got time. Like you don't really want to start hyping something that's appointment viewing until more like maybe 4 weeks out, really.
Are you surprised that it didn't also announce that it's doing like a little shindig there in the theater like it does for E3?
What, Microsoft?
Yeah. Because it also has that theater all week.
Yeah.
And you can go over there and they have kiosks to play games, and there's a huge, there's tons of seats for people to sit in.
Oh, I think they're wiser than doing that right now. Especially by June, there'll probably be more COVID concerns. That's starting to heat up again. The first death from PAX East happened today.
Really?
A volunteer, an unpaid volunteer, died from COVID that they got at PAX East.
Oh no!
And there have been a lot of people that got it from PAX East. There's been multiple outbreaks from there.
I don't think that the press conference is going to be live.
No, definitely.
I think it's going to be a Nintendo Direct. All pre-recorded and snapped together.
Oh, definitely. I have no doubt of that.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll shoot it there. But I don't think they're going to gather too many people in one place if they don't have to.
Yeah, which I think to your point, you're right. Like, there's no way they're going to do like that thing that they usually do at E3, where they're going to get all these people together because they don't want.
I don't think so.
They don't want people like us sharing the stories like you just shared about their event, saying, "Oh, these people went to this Xbox thing and everyone has COVID." And
No, I mean, it's been that happened at DICE as well. Like, people came back from Vegas. I mean, that's Vegas though, so Vegas. There's never any precautions.
And CES too.
Yeah.
When people came back from CES, people that we know were on Facebook saying, I got COVID at CES. Luckily, I didn't hear of anyone getting it seriously or being hospitalized.
I still feel pretty lucky I didn't get it from that film festival in Phoenix.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Sometimes you walk away from stuff and it doesn't seem like a big risk at the time, and then you start thinking about it and you're like, oh, maybe that was actually.
I know a lot of people that have gotten it in the last month or two that didn't get it through the whole anything.
Yeah. People are letting their guard down now.
Yeah.
And most people aren't wearing masks anymore, so.
Phoenix, there were no masks. Yeah, I didn't either. I'm just like, all right, well, we're here. Let's go for it.
Yeah.
And
you dodged the bullet.
Didn't.
You dodged the bullet.
I mean, cases were real low then. It's getting worse again. At the time, I think it was like 150 cases per 100,000 in LA County, and now it's back up to 2,300.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty much back where we were.
It's going in the wrong direction again, which sucks.
And so in the end, the ESA might have been kind of right. We'll see how it goes in the next month and a half and what LA County looks like. But again, maybe LA County isn't the numbers you want to look at. You want to look at the idea of bringing people in internationally
from other places
all over the world to the convention center. So they might have actually been accidentally prescient about this. I don't think that's really why they did. I think they were looking for an excuse to not have to mount this year.
Because they probably would have lost a ton of money.
Yeah,
let's be honest.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll see plenty of stuff. But as you have noted, it will probably be dragged out across a couple of months, so it won't feel like a big blast of E3 information. It'll just be like a slow drip feed.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like we're going to get like a little mini E3. It feels like Microsoft is going to be the only thing.
No, we can hope that Microsoft's doing this in part because they have a lot of stuff to show. Finally, they're
it should.
I mean, yeah, they should be at a point where a whole bunch of their stuff from their new studios is about ready to have a first showing kind of thing. At the very least, like, it's probably time to see something beyond the teaser trailer for Fable, and things like that. Maybe you have actual. Well, no, you probably
first gameplay of Forza Motorsport, maybe
something like that. I was going to say you probably don't have first gameplay of State of Decay 3.
Nope,
that's not going
that's
too
not
well.
happening. That's for sure.
Maybe you have a more in-depth thing on Hellblade.
Avowed. Finally show some gameplay for Avowed, maybe. Yeah, something
from Avowed. Probably a big thing of Starfield.
I mean, Starfield's going to be the closer, is my guess.
I would think so. That's the big.
There's nothing bigger.
That's the 800-pound gorilla, really.
Yep. Just so you guys know that we will be here covering the Microsoft press conference live, which means we'll be doing live commentary over it, and then we'll do some analysis afterwards. So you have that to look forward to. We'll have at least a little taste of E3 in 2022. Whereas I thought, honestly, Matt, I thought we were going to get none. So I'll take it. Thank you, Microsoft. Thank you, Xbox, for still doing a little something for those of us who are going to miss E3, although I realize a lot of you guys aren't. Although it does feel like it's kind of split down the middle 50-50. People who are going to miss E3 versus people who just don't care at all.
Yeah, I don't really care.
Yeah, even our show here is split 50-50. Yeah. You're on one side, I'm on the other.
I mean, I'll miss Pactor's party.
Yeah.
But I won't miss E3.
Yeah.
Like, those are two different things.
But at least we're going to get a little bit of a taste of it, and we will be here covering it live, so get excited.
Vincent also makes a good point. It could open with Starfield and close with a surprise.
That's true.
Maybe it's time to see Fable for real.
Yeah, that's true.
I could see them doing that, too.
I mean, we haven't really seen anything of Starfield.
No.
I mean, that trailer that they put out is nothing.
But, like, starting it with a bang with, like, here's Starfield. Here's what you're going to be playing in November. Like, here it is. And then at the end of the show, they're like, oh, by the way.
Here's this other thing that you'll be playing next fall or whatever.
Yeah, or, like, next spring. Like, this is actually happening.
I mean, Xbox is going to have a lot to show.
Somewhere in there, I imagine you have to talk about Halo Infinite. Or Infinity, or whatever the hell it's called. I don't even remember what it's named anymore.
I don't know. You might want to just let that sleeping dog die.
I think you gotta address that. They got a lot of work to do on that thing.
Vincent is asking if we're going to do live coverage of Keighley's main stage show. Maybe
whatever it is.
First of all, we need to figure out when it is, what it is. As we get closer, we'll make those decisions once we figure out if it's worth covering. No disrespect to Jeff, but most of his events, save for the Game Awards, really aren't worth covering live. In the past, they haven't been, because he used to get he would get some big stuff, but mostly he'd get kind of the scraps. that other stage shows didn't get.
And certainly, like in terms of like how he runs those shows, they tend to be like long interviews and sort of sitting around. I mean, I guess we could do that, but you'd have to accept that like we would be in and out of this room. Like, it would be more like we're hanging out and occasionally stick our heads in.
Yeah,
because
remember, like last year, he did this thing where like he was okay. Today, I have this 10-minute interview with Tony Hawk. Yeah. I'm going to put it up on my YouTube channel for Summer Games Fest. It wasn't like this big event. But if that changes, and it could, because he has the run of the mill now. He can pick and choose what he wants in his shows. He should have plenty of content to make something big. And if that is the case, then we probably will cover it live. But just stay tuned. We'll let you know as we get closer. We'll let you know what we're going to do. Yeah, Vincent says last year's Elden Ring and a lot of filler. But again, he was competing with other outlets, other stage shows for content, and this year he's really not. So he could deliver something really awesome. Yeah. I would not say something as big as the Game Awards. I think that might be a stretch.
I imagine a lot of it will be remote. I don't think there's going to be a lot of in-person stuff.
I also wonder, too, if a lot of publishers will try to hold stuff for Gamescom.
Maybe.
Where they have people and it's more alive, and that's starting to seem dicey as hell to me now. Going to Gamescom, man, like most people go to Gamescom when there wasn't a pandemic and come home sick. Like I remember I would send my guys to Germany and I just knew that most of them, well, first of all, they're going to be crazy jet lagged when they get back. Oh, yeah. But at least 3 of them were going to be sick.
Oh, yeah, it happened. I mean, everywhere I got. But one was it 2007 TGS. I got sicker than some of the sickest I've ever been in my life. Mm-hmm. Like I don't remember a couple of days there.
Yeah,
and I was like the one.
That's the worst. Being sick that far from home.
Yeah, and I was stuck in the hotel room. Everybody else went, but like they still needed scripts. So like I was writing scripts for them, like and emailing them to our coordinating producer.
Yeah,
and like. When they all got back near the end of the one of the day, and I felt better, and I'd gone down to the bar and like was getting something to eat because I'd been like just sort of delirious in the hotel room all day, and I apologized to her for like, I'm sorry I didn't wasn't able to get you all those like a bunch of the scripts for this and this, and she's like, yeah, you did.
You forgot.
And she's like, you sent me this. And I'm like, I have no memory of writing or sending any of them.
That's
like,
crazy.
Three of the booth tours were written by something in here that does not remember doing that. Like
that's when you know you're sick.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, again, it is good to get at least a little taste of E3. And honestly, probably of the 3, Xbox probably would have the most to show.
I would hope so.
Like if I had to choose between the 3 pressers.
Also, like my God, if you're gonna do that anyway, if you're gonna stand up and be like, we're still doing our thing, like you better deliver.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be good.
I hope so.
We'll be here.
The timing is right.
It is. This is it.
Yeah.
This is where all these purchases Microsoft has made start to come to fruition.
Yeah, if E3 was still happening, we would definitely be expecting Microsoft to come out swinging.
Blow the doors off. So. Yep. So anyway, there you go. There's going to be a little bit of E3 this year, which is really exciting. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about what I hinted at earlier when someone brought up Balan Wonderworld. We're going to talk about Yuji Naka. And I will say this, it may be the last time, Matt, you and I talk about Yuji Naka on anything ever.
Maybe I'd bring up Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg once in a while just to remind people that bullshit happened.
That was the beginning of his downward trajectory.
That you can draw a straight line from Billy Hatcher to Balan Wonderworld.
You can, and in between there was
Billy Hatcher was a real game though.
It was, yeah.
In comparison to
and there was a middle step in there too. There was that Radea the Sky Soldier.
Yeah, I never played that.
It was one of the worst games I've ever played.
I think I own that.
Only to be eclipsed by Balan Wonderworld.
Yeah.
Which is the worst game that I've played in a really long time.
Now, Radea Sky Soldier at least was pretty. Not the game, but like the art for it. Like
technically it wasn't, but no, the game wasn't pretty.
But artistically, like the cover and like the concept art, like, oh yeah, that's really nice. I like that. Balan cannot make that claim.
It wasn't like this. This is the weirdest. Not only is it the worst game, it is also the weirdest game ever made.
It does kind of look like the Wii Sports characters if they like been starved for a month.
Yeah. I still have no idea what any of this has to do with the actual game, Balan Wonderworld. No clue. It's like one of their animators was like, "Hey, I figured out how to animate windmills," which is the breakdancing movie does.
Well, there's a lot of knights in here in terms of that, and like the concept of like 2 characters, a boy and a girl, and one of them is like a street kind of sporty guy and the girl is
street
more
ruffian.
artistic.
Yeah,
I mean the Knights even starts with him like washing out on the basketball team and like or playing basketball and failing or whatever, and the girl wants to be an actress or a singer, and like that's pretty much the same thing happening in this.
This game is so bad, and people are wondering, like, what happened? How did this game become terrible? I mean, if you know Yuji Naka,
she's the abused maid in this. That's right. That was she's not a singer. She's the help, or like, yeah.
Like, Yuji's been floating along on his Sonic reputation for a really, really long time, but if you paid attention, Beyond Wonderworld didn't come out of nowhere.
Oh, no, not at all.
He has been on this downward trajectory for literally like 15 or 20 years at this point. Billy Hatcher was what, 2001?
Nah, that was like, it was like 3.
Was it?
It was
GameCube exclusive.
GameCube,
yeah. And
we
we
were in San Francisco, but the GameCube was going.
Yeah, so it's been like 20 years that he's just steadily been going downhill. So this wasn't that big of a surprise to me. How bad it was a surprise. Well, Yuji Naka finally came out today, or this week, rather, and explained from his perspective what he believes happened to the game. And did you see this story, Matt?
I saw some of it, but like it was too sad.
It is sad. So basically what happened was 6 months away from release, Square Enix started pushing back on him. They were working with an outside studio.
I can see why. Even Square knew this was bad.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. So it's at about 6 months out from when it was supposed to be released. They were working with an outside studio, and the outside studio had been delivering buggy code for the game. And Yuji Naka was pushing back and saying, no, you need to go back and you need to get this right. You need to send it to us again. Which, if you're 2 years out from release or 18 months out from release, sure, that makes sense. You're still, at that point, you still have an opportunity to make the game much better. So yeah, you send back code then. When you're 6 months out from release and you start getting nitpicky over it, that's when red flags start to go up. And Square Enix was like, wait a minute, like, this game's supposed to be released in 6 months. It knew as well as anybody the game was going to be a piece of crap and really weird and wasn't going to sell at that point. There was another issue where basically one of the songs from the soundtrack was released on YouTube or something like that, but it wasn't from the OST. It was like a reworked version by like a fan or something like that. And Square Enix put it out, and Yuji got really angry. He said, this isn't how you do things. You need to put out the official soundtrack. He had some line in his tweets that said, like, this isn't what people are going to be humming. They're going to hum the original soundtrack. So
no one's going to be humming anything.
Exactly. So he was basically butting heads with Square Enix as its game is supposed to be coming down the home stretch. It's supposed to be 6 months out. And he blames the quality of the game on... He says it's unfinished, which I don't know if it is, honestly.
It definitely feels unfinished.
You think it does?
Yeah.
Or do you think it's just bad?
I think it's both.
Because there's a difference.
I think it's both. Like, it's definitely so rough around the... Even if you were just trying to make what it is, it's so rough around those edges that it's clearly not done.
I mean, it could have been polished, yeah, but I mean, I don't think polish would have made any difference for this game, is what I'm getting at.
I think it could have, but like...
Because when I think about what I did with this game is bad, I don't think about like bugs where it crashed or things didn't work the way they were supposed to.
I do, because I got stuck in shit all the time.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that never happened to me.
I had to restart levels because of that a
couple really?
times, which is like, you do not want to do any of this again.
Yeah, oh no. This is one of those games where you get through a level and you're like, shoo, it's like relief. Oh it's not you're excited.
But also like despair at how many things you didn't get because you didn't have the right equipment or the right character.
Oh, right. Or you didn't have the right character to morph into or whatever. Yeah. So, from his perspective, though, the game was released unfinished, and the game was terrible, and people hate it because of the last 6 months of development, where
the problems in this game go all the way to the core.
Yeah, they go from day one. Like, this game, if they had delayed this game another year, I don't think it would have made any difference.
No. Well, because it's like yes, it's unfinished and it's unpolished and it's like it doesn't feel good to play, etc. But like a lot of the other flaws and a lot of the other bad ideas like go straight back to everything else he's made for the last 20 years.
It does. It's the same stuff he's been doing.
Like too many of the problems are in character for his body of work since the 2000s.
Exactly.
It's very hard to see that like what a difference the last 6 months would have made.
No, it would have made no difference whatsoever.
Like it would have been non-buggy and polished crap.
Right. But it still would have been crap.
Yeah. I don't imagine a fixed version of this being a better game.
I don't either. It still would have got like a 3 or a 4 Metacritic.
Like it's it's a bad game.
It's just a bad game. It was
it's
a bad
game
concept.
full of bad ideas.
Yeah, it's a bad concept. It's got bad art. It's got bad ideas. It feels like a game that was... It feels like Yuji Naka, like, went to the Amazon back in 2001 and has been there for the last 17 years, completely locked away from all society and all video games, and then he returns and somebody stupidly hands him a development team to make a game. Now, Square Enix is...
This would only have been impressive if you showed it to me on the launch of the Dreamcast.
Right. Like, Square Enix isn't completely innocent in this, because it was dumb enough to look at his ideas for this game and give him a development team and a budget to make it. So I'm not absolving Square Enix
a whole company.
I know.
To make,
I know.
They named
the company
it
was
after
called
this.
Balon.
Yeah.
So look, Square Enix, dumb. But here's what I think happened, Matt, and you can tell me if you think I'm wrong. I think Square Enix saw this game as a piece of crap long time ago.
I mean, given his story, it really sounds like they saw what it was.
The writing was on the wall. And they're like, no, dude, like, we just need to finish this game and get it out and get over it and forget about it as quickly as humanly possible. Mm-hmm. And he was like, no, this is my baby, and it's going to be great.
No,
and they're like...
Square clearly saw it was time to cut bait.
Yeah, they cut bait.
And
Yuji Naka...
I can't disagree with that.
No, I can't either. I would have done the same damn thing. And Yuji Naka was completely oblivious to what was going on. Like, I don't think he's lying, Matt. Like, I don't think...
No, I don't think he's making this up to cover his... I think he really does believe it. I just think he's wrong.
I think he really believes that in the last 6 months, he could have turned this from a terrible game into an amazing game. He used some example for, like, I think it was like the second Sonic the Hedgehog. He's like, when we were working on the second Sonic, we came up with this idea in the last 3 months of development. It's like, dude, that's not how games work anymore. That's not how game development works anymore.
And that was a risk even then.
Yeah.
So, like, you're on a Genesis here, dude.
Dude, that's not how it works. You have teams of, like, dozens of people working on this. It's like the Titanic heading towards the iceberg. You need to see that iceberg
like this
18
like, there
months
is no
ahead.
way this minigame is finished. This is placeholder shit.
I don't think
It
so,
is.
Matt. I think it's exactly what he wanted it to be.
No, I don't think it is. I think because it doesn't make any sense. Like
none of his games do anymore.
No, but this doesn't make any sense that this is like what you thought this was supposed to be. Like
lining up the silhouette with the character model. Like, again, this is from like 2001, dude.
Especially because like he only has 2 moves. Like at the very least, if this was finished, I think he'd have a different move set in each of these things. There's only 1 per level. Like, or 1 per world, even. I don't think it's 1 per level. I think it screams like that's enough to call it done. Like it's. Cinetag
says, and yet Square Enix sells a bunch of competent studios. Now, to be fair, this studio was dissolved immediately.
Yeah,
and Yuji Naka was fired, and they
knew this wasn't worth anything.
He also claims that he was barred from discussing the game with anyone online. That once he kind of had that falling out, he was called into HR, and HR was like, by the way, you're not allowed to talk about this game on social media anymore.
All right. I mean, I can understand why you want the conversation about this game to go away
as quickly as humanly possible. And he filed a lawsuit against them, basically for wrongful termination over this. It's like, dude, you can't see that Square Enix was trying to give you a way out. Mm-hmm. Instead, you took offense to it, and you're trying to blame Square Enix for this god-awful game that you created. He is so clueless. What happened to him?
Bilbo Naka, I am not trying to rob you. I'm trying to help you, as Gandalf might say.
Yeah. What happened to him?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Like, he made a couple of my favorite games back in the day. Like this, I love the first couple Sonics. I love Knights. Knights would probably be in my top 20 still, of all time. And then he worked with Phantasy Star.
Yep.
Online and a bunch. Yeah, great stuff for a long time. And then the age of 3D began in earnest, and he just never made anything.
He couldn't
good
do
again.
it. Yep, he couldn't do it. I know a lot of people will say, what about Sonic Adventure? I do not think Sonic Adventure is all that great of a game. I think it's a good tech demo for the Dreamcast.
Yeah, I mean, it was impressive at the time. I do have a nostalgic spot for it, and I like 2 better. And certainly 2 had an impact on the Sonic brand. I don't know if it's really very good. But they were very weird, and I think the best you can say about the Sonic Adventures is they were certainly a direction to try going in those early days of 3D games.
Mm-hmm.
It just, I think it proved, in the end, it proved that was not the direction anyone was going in.
And Noob Taylor says this game doesn't look that bad to me.
Okay.
Okay. Well, like I said, it takes all kinds. But I think its Metacritic ended up being like a 3 or something like that.
Yeah, that's about right.
Somewhere around there. That's about right based upon what I played of it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's you're right though. He is one of the developers that struggled in the transition from 2D to 3D and never made it out the other side really. Mm-hmm. Because you got to remember too, like he disappeared for a long time.
Yeah.
Like cuz he tried to become like Sega's Miyamoto. So during the Dreamcast era, and then the Dreamcast died, and Sega went multi-platform, he was kind of the Miyamoto at Sega. He was kind of...
Because they were, for a while, it was kind of a competition of like, who's going to be the Sega Miyamoto? Is it going to be him, or is it going to be Yu Suzuki?
Yu Suzuki,
and then Yu Suzuki made Shenmue, so that was the end of that.
Yep.
and then Yuji Naka was like kind of last man standing, and then he just never made anything good again. Billy Hatcher sort of took the bloom off that egg.
But he also kind of killed Sega because he was also overseeing all Sega's output now that it was third party. And most of that crap didn't do well either. Mm-hmm. And so he ended up getting washed out of Sega for the most part after that like bumpy period where Sega first went multi-platform.
One of the most annoying things about this game is you can't jump.
Yeah, and it's a 3D platform where you can't jump.
Only certain characters can jump.
Yeah, it's absurd. It's awful.
Like, it's one thing if, like, certain characters get, like, the ability to jump
really high,
but everybody should be able to jump. Because the other weird thing that happens is there's only one button. Every button on the controller does the same thing.
I forgot about that.
And if you don't have a character active, all the buttons do the same thing, which is nothing. It's amazing.
It's just amazingly awful.
It's just so weird. Like, it's so amateur hour on every level, and I don't understand how it happens, but here we are. I don't understand how a lot of things happen with the history of Naka.
So he disappeared. He started his own studio. Like, he really never put out anything of consequence until Rodea. Rodea got bombed by critics. He disappeared again, and then shows up and Square Enix just gives him a ton of money to make this terrible game. And now he says that he is going to learn how to program again, and he's going to make mobile games on his own or retire.
I'll go for that second one.
Yeah. Dude. That's Peter Molyneux. That's a Peter Molyneux model. It's where it's like, I'm just going to go make mobile games where people don't care, and I'm not going to get harassed by people every time I do something stupid. So it appears that Yuji Naka's career is over, and it also appears that his shining moment will probably be Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Sonic.
Is that fair?
Sonic. Yeah, he created Sonic. He's one of the creators. I think that's a pretty good legacy.
Yeah.
We just won't talk about any of the rest of this stuff.
Yeah, it's depressing, man.
Yeah. I mean, Sonic and Knights are two pretty great contributions to the medium.
I mean, he was a god for a while in the games industry. Yeah. He was right. I mean, some people, there were arguments of who's better, Miyamoto or Yuji Naka. Yeah. Like, those discussions were had. Yeah. And now it's absurd. But back then, it didn't seem so absurd. And now it is. It's a shame, honestly. Like, the other thing, too, about it is that he's a really good guy.
Yeah, he is a very nice man.
Like, the nicest guy. Mm-hmm. Like, every time I've met him, he's been crazy respectful. And, I mean, Japanese people in general are this way.
In general, but even for
Japanese folks, like,
yeah,
I mean, to my crews that would go shoot with it, he was just always, he would sign autographs, he would do whatever.
One time I interviewed him on the floor of E3, and obviously some people started realizing who he was, standing there in his impeccably tailored tan suit.
Yep.
And after the interview, he just sort of stepped back and waited for everyone to approach him, and stood there and talked and signed and took pictures with every single person until no one was left.
He's a good dude, but he's just... The fact that he couldn't see that 6 months out was too late to fix a game that was terrible, or that he could not see that the game was terrible already and there was no saving it at that point. It just shows you. I mean, he's out of touch with modern game development, and unfortunately, it came out in Balan Wonderworld. So,
I mean, I can see the evolution of his body of work to that game, and it's just yeah, that was always a dead end.
Yeah, you can connect the dots between all those games. You can see Billy Hatcher in that game.
You see Knights, Billy Hatcher,
All of it.
oh yeah, it's all in there.
Yeah.
And I know, and a weird somewhere in there that Kid Chameleon game really made an impression on him, I guess, because that is an update of that game too.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, there you go. Fallen hero, really, or fallen game god, Yuji Naka. You think we'll see him again? You think he's going to retire? You think he's going to make
Maybe we'll see that mobile
games.
game. I don't know what that'll look like.
I wonder, someone his age who has done this all his life, what do you do? Like, where do you go?
I don't know.
I mean, maybe he's wealthy enough that he doesn't have to work again. I don't know. I don't know how those early 16-bit developers, if they actually made a lot of money off of those games. I don't know. What kind of payments?
I would imagine they've been paid pretty well and probably have stock options in the company and stuff. I mean, I don't know how good that works out for you at Sega.
Right. Nintendo, it could work out very well, but at Sega, not so much. Yeah, I don't know. I have a feeling we may never see him again. I think this might be it. I probably should have went and looked and checked to see if he was interacting with people over this game now, because he sued Square Enix, and now whatever happened with that is resolved, and he can talk to fans, he can explain what happened now. So it'd be interesting to see if he actually interacted with people and how people are treating him, actually. Because, you know, the internet can be a tough place for anyone. If you just made a game that was that bad, it can be brutal. So hopefully people are at least being respectful, because the guy does deserve respect. He did some amazing things. It's just been a really long time since he has. So
he's not that old.
How old is he? 60?
He was born in 65. So he's 9 years older than me.
Wow. Wow. That's crazy. So he's not even 60 yet.
He's 11 years older than me. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's like 57, 56.
Wow. He's not that old. That's too young to retire, man. So we'll see. Maybe he will come back, but I wouldn't get too excited about it. Soundboy says his net worth is 1.4 to 1.5 million. Not quite enough to retire on. Yeah.
Especially depending on how much of that is, like, if he owns a house.
Mm-hmm. Now, if he has a house in Tokyo, he'd be worth a lot more than that.
Yeah.
Property values there are insane.
I mean, one of the objectives, if you're successful in Tokyo, is to not live directly in Tokyo.
Yeah.
You go to one of those nice little, like,
castle hotels,
outer prefectures, and live in one of those places that looks like nice and homey, but it's like one train ride in.
Right. And then if you get stuck in a city, you stay at a capsule hotel or whatever.
Kind of like where Polyphony is.
Yeah.
Like, Polyphony's in a really nice, like, little neighborhood that you'd never know you were in one of the biggest cities in the world.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
you're
it's
right.
like 10 minutes from the center of Tokyo.
Tokyo's like that, though. You can find these little enclaves where it feels way more rural than it actually is.
That's what happens when you design a city for people to live in it.
That's true.
Rather than cars to drive around in it.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. Okay, let's move
see
on.
What urban planning looks like? Go to Japan.
Yeah. Yep.
They know what they're doing.
Yep. So PlayStation Plus has been a topic in the industry, a big topic in the industry now for the last couple months. Everyone's been wondering what PlayStation is going to do to try to compete with Game Pass. And we kind of have that answer now. We know that there's a 3-tiered system, and the bottom tier is what we've all been paying for all along. And then there's a middle tier, and then the top tier is basically PlayStation Now and all the lower stuff as well. Well, Sony, it had mentioned, and I didn't think it was a big deal at the time, when it mentioned this, was that a part of the premium tier, the most expensive tier, which is $18 a month, and then what was it, a year, $120 or $140 or something?
Something like that.
I don't remember. But the highest tier also has this thing called timed game trials. And I think we may have just brought it up briefly when we talked about it. I think we were scared that meant they were going to take away playable demos from everybody, and you're going to have to pay that highest tier to get any kind of demos. And I think we talked it out, and we were like, no, that doesn't make sense, because Xbox is still going to have demos, and there's no way they're just going to let Xbox give away free demos.
It's a weird thing to lock behind a paywall.
Right. Well, this week we found out what Sony is talking about, and basically it is the ability to play any game for the first 2 hours for free, which, pretty big deal, although it's not that out of the ordinary.
One could argue that a lot of games, that's all I play of them sometimes.
Yeah, well, depending on how good or how bad they are, really. But
Babylon's Fall barely got that much time out of me.
But it's not out of the ordinary, because Steam lets you play the first 2 hours of games, and you can return them if you don't like them. So it's not that out of the ordinary. What is out of the ordinary is that Sony announced this week, or I don't remember if they announced it or if it leaked, that every game has to have a free trial that's 2 hours long. And it's not just something that Sony is doing in the back end where, okay, we have this file.
The game's less than 2 hours long.
Right. Well, so the caveat is that the only games that have to do this have to cost $34 or more wholesale. So basically, it's only full-price AAA games that have to do it. Indie games do not have to do it, which, good. Because you're right, there are some games that if you're giving away 2 hours, you're giving away maybe the whole game in some cases. But the catch is, this is not something that happens on the back end, where the developer or publisher supplies the game code, the finished game that they're selling, and then like Sony just slaps a timer on it that cuts you off after 2 hours. They're asking the developers and the publishers to supply these special 2-hour game trial versions, essentially saying,
you decide where the cutoff is, basically.
Well, but also putting the burden on the publisher and the developer to create this stuff, an extra hoop to jump through that you don't have to jump through on other platforms if you want your games to be sold on PlayStation platforms. How do you feel about this, Matt? Do you think it's smart?
I mean, it seems kind of a dumb idea. I don't think it's going to be all that impactful in terms of, it feels like that's pretty, just cut that off or what. It's probably not a hard ask. But, I don't know. I guess. I mean, I don't, it's weird to me. It's not, I don't care so much about making the developer make a fake demo kind of thing, so much as like, is that a thing people will pay a premium tier for? Like, that's
it's
weird
one
to me.
Out of a bunch of things that's in that tier.
Yeah, but there's not much else in that tier that I would even consider using unless you really desperately want to play some old PS1 games that were already available on PS3.
And you're probably going to stream them most of the time. Let's be honest. It appears that most of that stuff is going to be handled with streams and not real emulation.
Not installment. Yeah, which is a huge downside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly doesn't move the needle for me in terms of Yeah,
Do you think publishers and developers will push back on this, or will be bothered by it at all?
I don't know. Some of them probably. Maybe it is just more work to do.
Right.
For the benefit of what? People to play your game for free until they realize they want to buy it, like while giving Sony money for it.
This is what I was getting at. You're figuring it out. To me, if I'm a developer or a publisher, I hate this. Now, I do realize that on Steam, this is kind of the way it goes. This is the lay of the land. And I'm sure there's a lot of indie developers that don't like that about Steam either. Because I don't think Steam even has a cutoff. I think Steam is like 2 hours, even for indie games. If you don't like it, you can return it and get your money back.
I know plenty of people who finished games in less than 2 hours and then
returned it and got their money back. Yeah. You would think they would at least check for that. Like,
I think it's just a universal system. Like, they don't get into that kind of nuance. Like, they don't check your achievements.
Yeah. You would think that maybe Steam would be like, look, every game needs to have an achievement for finishing the game. And if somebody pops that achievement...
You've already put more effort into it than Steam ever will.
It's too much work.
Steam doesn't care.
You think they would, because that's allowing people to get a refund, and they're losing money on it. So you would think that they would want to...
I don't think that happens all that often.
Yeah. Let's be honest. There aren't too many games that you can finish in 2 hours. But there are lots of games where you could play half of them in 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like, a lot. There's a lot of indie games that are 4 hours or less. Mm-hmm. In fact, I would say maybe the bulk of them are.
Yeah.
Seems to me, anyway.
I don't know about the bulk of them, but like, a lot of them are like endless things.
Yeah.
I had one of those this week.
It feels like a strong arm tactic by Sony, because Sony knows there's no way they're going to be like, you know what, screw you, I'm not releasing our games on PlayStation anymore.
Yeah.
And Sony is playing its leverage and saying, look, we know you have to work with us. Mm-hmm. And so I don't care how pissed off you are that you have to jump through this extra hoop to release games on our platform. You're going to do it.
Yeah, at the same time, like if Capcom doesn't want to do their trial for Monster Hunter World 2, is Sony not going to let them put Monster Hunter on PlayStation? Like, I feel like Sony doesn't hold all the cards on this one.
Well, here's the other part of this is the publishers and developers have 3 months from the day the game is released to get that demo, that 2-hour demo, up on PlayStation Network. Mm. So do you mean to tell me that if, using your example, the new Monster Hunter comes out and it sells like crazy on PlayStation, on the PlayStation Store, and Sony's made all this money off of it, making its cut off of each sale, and then you get to that 3-month mark and Capcom still hasn't delivered that 2-hour demo? Are you going to drop Capcom off of your platform? I don't think so.
I mean, at that point, you probably just slap a 2-hour timer on the thing and let them play it.
But that's the point. Like, Sony, according to Sony anyway, it can't do that.
I bet that's what it's going to end up being.
That's exactly. That's what I think is going to happen. I think there's going to be I don't think Sony has thought this one through, just like it didn't think through anything else with these PlayStation Plus tiers. Let's be honest. This feels like it's just all been thrown together haphazardly, slapdash.
A lot of it feels like you guys were just coming up with things in the meeting to come up with things in the meeting.
And you didn't really brainstorm them and be like, okay, let's see what happens on down the road here with this stuff. Like, that's exactly what's going to happen, Matt. They are going to start this program. They're going to realize that they don't hold all the cards, in fact. And if they want to do what's best for business, they're not going to be able to hold these publishers and developers accountable for this. And they're going to be like, you know what? We're just going to figure out a solution on the back end. Just give us the final code for the game, and we'll slap some kind of a timer on the back end, and problem solved, and you guys are off the hook. You don't have to do anything anymore.
Erebus Jones says the PS Store team is going to make the 2-hour demo.
That's not what Sony has said. It said it's on the developer and the publisher.
This is the leaker who broke the story. It says it's the PS Store team that's supposed to produce the demo.
That's not what the story said. Huh. That's not what the story said that we had on Sifted. That's for sure. So maybe there was a follow-up or whatever. I don't know. Soundboy says Sony needs Jack Trenton back. Are you surprised, though, that Sony does seem to be flying by the seat of its pants on a lot of stuff anymore?
Not really. I mean, they certainly not with their online service. They don't really seem to know what to do with that, and haven't for a while. Now creating this tier, like I've said before, I think all the tier system stuff they're doing here is just an attempt to sort of have things in place if Game Pass becomes the law of the land.
Yeah,
that's all.
It's like a fallback, a safety net.
Yeah, it's just so the infrastructure's there if this becomes the way you have to compete.
What's Nintendo's doing then?
Nintendo's doing what Nintendo always does, their own thing.
It knows it doesn't have to worry about it because it has its fans in the bag. They're going to buy its products no matter what.
You can't get Mario anywhere else, so they don't need to worry about it.
Yeah. So you don't think this is a sign that, like, PlayStation's starting to slip a little bit?
I mean, no more than it already is. I mean, I can't possibly care less about the top tier of PlayStation Plus than I already don't.
Yeah.
So, no, it doesn't really move any... oh boy, another dumb thing at the top tier that I'm not going to subscribe to is basically my reaction to that.
Well, I think Sony is starting to get that gist, Matt, because I don't know if you've seen, but like the way it is taking existing subscriptions for PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now and then giving people that top tier, the premium tier, is very generous. Which is a hint to me that it realizes that, hey, this premium tier probably isn't going to get a whole lot of pickup. So if we can convince people to just naturally be grandfathered into it, and then maybe once they get in there, we can convince them to stay, or they'll just forget to cancel or whatever.
Forgetting to cancel is a very valid business tool.
It's legit.
With subscriptions these days.
Yeah. I do it. I have so many subscriptions to stuff like Netflix. There are months, 2-3 months will go by that I don't even open up Netflix. And I've just been paying that subscription all along. Like, there should be something in place where if you don't use something, it just automatically unsubscribes until you...
Nobody would ever implement that.
Well, no, I'm saying there should be laws, like, where it's forced to be implemented in a service or something.
That would be a very different universe.
It would be. One where we'd spend a lot less money. That's for sure.
A consumer-facing...
laws, that's never going to happen. God bless capitalism. But anyway, it just feels like these stories keep coming up where it looks like Sony is asleep at the wheel a little bit, which is weird to me as the market leader, but maybe it shouldn't be. Because there has been a lot of evidence across the years where Sony does become arrogant when it's successful, and it does start dropping the ball a little bit here and there. So I don't know if that's what's happening now, if it's a sign of it, but this whole new PlayStation Plus thing, it just seems like it's just been slapped together without a whole lot of foresight.
Yeah, doesn't, like, there's certainly nothing in the higher tiers, the mid or the high tier, that, like, why?
Yeah. I haven't met anyone who wants to do anything but just stick with the same PlayStation Plus they've had all along. Yeah.
There's nothing of interest there.
Yeah. I mean, even those old PS1 games, like, I have no interest in playing those. None.
Any PS1 games that I would ever want to play again, I own.
Or I got in the micro console, the little mini PS1.
Yeah, not too many. I kept my
10.
collection. I still have a bunch of digital ones on the PS3. Like, I don't
That's
need
enough.
some weird PS Now thing.
Yeah, me either. So it'll be interesting to see how this does, but you may be right. Sony may not care about how it does. It may just be like, look, we just need to have this stuff in place in case.
I think that's all it is like put things in place.
Break glass in case of emergency type
keep
thing.
Keep the people subscribing now on the same tier. We don't lose anything. If anybody wants to bump it up for some ungodly reason, that's just more money for them.
Yep.
So.
Yep. All right. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about another game that one of us played this week. There's only 2. And I'm not a big fan of this subgenre, and Matt is, so it's perfect that you decided to play it.
What subgenre?
Roguelikes, yeah.
Oh, I don't like roguelikes.
Oh, you don't like them? I thought you did.
I like very specific ones. Like Hades and Returnal was good. No, I find most of these tedious and annoying.
Oh, okay. Well, we're on the same squad on that one.
And this one is not particularly different.
It's not. This is Rogue Legacy 2, by the way.
Yeah.
A lot of people say the first Rogue Legacy is like the greatest roguelike ever. Is that not true?
Not by a remote. No. Like,
really?
It's not bad. It doesn't do anything for me. Like I get why people kind of like it, but like, I mean, part of the problem I have with Rogue Legacy and Rogue Legacy 2 is I think the art style is repulsive. Like, I just absolutely hate how both of these games look.
What do you hate about it? It just seems like cartoony, whatever.
Yeah, I just think it looks stupid.
Oh.
And I don't like the anime. Like the guy, like the character you play as tends to run around like leaning back, like running with a sword. I'm just like, I just think it looks dumb.
Well, let's take a look at it. We can decide. What's up with this game? What's the story behind it? Now, obviously, the first one people liked a whole lot. Why did people like the first one so much?
Like, it was the first one to really codify like the the roguelite idea, like the action platformer, action adventure roguelite, where like you didn't have to like, it wasn't like a Darkest Dungeon like slog of like just pure punishment. It was like, oh, fun, run around, hack and slash platformer. Oh, you died. Now you got to be a different character with some different twists to him, and the map's different, and like.
Is that what's up with this game?
Yeah, pretty much. So this is very similar to the first one. You play an adventurer knight kind of guy, and you go through a Castlevania style maze, and you kill things and pick up loot, and hopefully fight bosses if you unlock their rooms. And if you die, you go back to your home base castle place. And you have to pick your descendant. You have to pick you basically, it's like every time you die, it's like you die and then your child takes over, like, and goes back. It's sort of like that Infinity Blade game on mobile. But each character, usually there's 3 versions of the new character, and they can mix and match like traits from previous lives or like introduce new ones, or you have a limited amount of control over what they have sometimes, and basically they can have different classes. You can unlock different classes. So you have like knights and valkyries and mages and chefs and duelists, and some of them are more comedy oriented than others. But
so this game has a comedic angle to it.
Oh yeah, it's very lighthearted, and like they can have like various abilities, somewhat randomized. Different classes have higher health or higher mana or better vitality, etc. And then there's usually like some kind of attribute thing. So it's like sometimes you'll have, and they can be good or bad. And so like you can have a character who has dwarfism, so they're very small, or you can have a character who is a giant who's really big. You have a character. One of my favorites was Diva. So if you have the Diva trait. Every character, every you and all the enemies have spotlights on them. Like there's no the world is dark, but there's spotlights on all of you, and the biggest spotlight is on you. And when you kill all the enemies in an area, a bunch of roses get thrown out on you, like a stage diva thing. There's also stuff like one of my other favorites. I think it's called Disattuned. That character they're all black, like a shadow, and there's a tiny little heart, like a 2-pixel heart. So you're invisible, but you can only be hit if that little 2-pixel heart gets hit.
Oh. So
basically and like you lose, like you have like lower health and stuff. Like there's like a trade-off to it. Also, you can get a skill thing that like gives you a bonus for gold if you have a disadvantage trait. So you can, if you're playing a difficult character, like there's a pacifist trait where you can't do damage. Like that's it. Your weapon is a little sign with a peace symbol on it, and you can't do damage. You can only do damage through, I think, skill crits and like jump kicks, which are very weak. But because jump kicks you have to use to get up they're a platforming tool more than a weapon, really. So stuff like that. And then when you're back, you keep all the gold when you die that you've accumulated, and you go back and you can upgrade your castles, like a big skill tree that upgrades health and power and et cetera, et cetera. A bunch of different skills, adds merchants to your castle. You can go, a blacksmith and a soothsayer that like upgrades spell stuff and runes. And there's actually an architect now, an old man who can freeze the map the way it was this last time. So if you liked the map, or like
you can go back and play it again,
you could like have him freeze it and go keep playing that same version, and you have to like randomize it every time. So
it is one of those roguelikes where it makes it easier.
You are permanently upgrading things,
some things
for that.
Was the first game like that too?
Yeah, it was, but not as much. Like, this is a much more forgiving game. Like, there's a lot more options on how you can play things. You can make yourself invincible if you want. You can allow yourself to fly if you can't. There's accessibility options like up and down. Like, there's a section of platforming like you can't figure out how to get past, or you're not good enough to get past, you can turn flight on and just fly over it.
Okay.
And there's no penalty for that. Like,
okay.
You play it. They want you to play it however you want. So. Difficulty is really not a problem in this game in terms of roguelite stuff. Like, that is they've given you the tools to do this however you want and definitely get through it no matter what. So that's cool. The only thing preventing you from doing that is your pride. And then they also added. I do like this. They added a like almost a Metroid style thing where you can find. I can't remember I think they're called hallowed things or something. I don't remember what they're called. But you can find power-ups in the game, like these like statues, like Metroid, like the Chozo statues. They're holding the ability in their hand, and you can jump into them, and you do like basically a challenge zone. And if you complete it, it teaches you a new permanent move. So like an air dash, or the ability to do the jump kick, or the ability to read, these like little soul stone things, like that little glowing thing that little glowing blue thing.
Yeah.
When you first play the game, if you interact with that, it'll be like, oh, you can't read that. Like, so you hear that, you can't make it out. So you can get an item from one of those challenge rooms that lets you read what that is, and that tells you how to open that door.
Okay.
So now you know what you need to do.
Gotcha.
So there is this constant sense of progress. To the point that like I don't really have any kind of issue with dying in this game. Like, it doesn't feel like you're, losing time or losing pace or anything. Like,
is that why it's considered one of the best in the genre, because it's not as punishing as a lot of them are?
I would think that's a lot. Yeah, it doesn't feel like you're failing. It just feels like you're playing. Mm-hmm. I guess that would be the best way to put that. It does not. I mean, to be perfectly honest, it does not really do a whole lot for me. Like, it's fine. It's pretty fun. It controls very well. It's very snappy. It doesn't do a lot to me.
It looks hard.
It doesn't do a lot to make me care. And there's time, and certain characters. I mean, part of the fun is seeing what the different versions of the character you get. And sometimes let's see what this guy, and it's like, oh, I've like just gotten myself killed because I'm like, I don't want to play as this version of this character anymore. Some of the abilities and some of the downsides are depend on your play style. Like, some people would probably love the ones I hate, but for me, there's like definitely ones where I'm like, oh, I am not a fan of barbarians.
I'm good.
In this game. The axe swing's too slow and the jump attack is too weak, so I'm gonna stick to the knights and the valkyries, and mages are kind of fun, but high difficulty because they're weaker. They're glass cannons. And you can find like various things that that like replace your abilities. So if you don't like an ability, there is a chance to find something that fixes it, but that only lasts for that one life. Mm-hmm. But then at least you know what that item does. So if you run into it again, you know whether you want it or not, because the trades are permanent for that character. And here's another thing where so there's you can spend some resolve here, which determines how high your power in your life is to like get like bonus artifacts for that character. There's your skill tree with your castle. So every time you upgrade something, it actually does build a new wing onto your
that's kind of cool,
your thing there. And then when you leave that, you run through sort of the front yard of the castle, and you can talk to all the merchants. And then you have to, just like in the first game, you have to get on Charon's boat, and he takes all your gold that you have left that you haven't spent, and takes you back to the beginning of the maze, and there you go. And then once you beat bosses, I've only fought the one boss, but like that, there's a bunch of different areas you can get to even without beating the boss, but they do kind of throw up a star rating for how difficult it is, and you can get to like a max star place like pretty quick.
Oh,
and
really?
Like, better get out of here. And some of those are gated by like the Metroid style abilities. Like there's early on, you're not going to be able to get out of one section until you have the
Is this a Metroidvania? Kinda.
It's definitely in the same vein. I mean, it's definitely a roguelite, but it borrows a lot from Metroid.
Okay.
In that regard, I mean, the permanent abilities and the fact that you have to use them to get to new areas definitely, you feel like you're in a Metroidvania in that regard.
Yeah.
But it is much more roguelite than that.
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty good. I feel it's a little mindless to me, and like I don't think the variation in the castle every time is particularly noteworthy. I do find the kind of the I mean, I'm sure some people find. I also don't like the rangers. The arrows, the bow and arrow does not feel good to shoot. There is a way you can keep the ranger in midair for a long time though by shooting over and over again. That's interesting.
I don't like the arc.
The arc.
It's like I'd rather just have a straight line for the archer.
Yeah, the arc of the aim is sort of the big challenge of the archer.
Yeah.
And the fact that you get pushed backwards when you shoot in midair.
Yeah. You can start using that though. I'm guessing. As you get
use
good, you start to.
That is a tool once you learn to use it. But I mostly just give me a sword and a shield.
Yep. It's $25. Is that right?
Yeah, but I didn't pay that because it was like an early access.
Yeah, I think on Steam you can get it for like 21 or something. It's on like a 10% or 20% discount.
I want to say
right
I
now.
got it for less than 20.
Yeah,
but I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, it's on like a discount right now if you want to get it a little cheaper. Would you recommend this, Matt? It's It's PC, Mac, Linux, and like Xbox right now.
Yeah, and I imagine it'll come other places
eventually.
But
it's weird that this isn't available for everything right now. Like,
yeah, it seems like it would be, but I don't know. I don't know what the story is there.
Yeah.
If you like the first Rogue Legacy, I can't imagine you won't like this one. It's very much of the same with more.
So do you disagree generally with people in their assessment of this franchise that it's like the greatest roguelike? That seems to be like this. I think the Metacritic for this is like an 8.9 or something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Sure,
You think that's accurate?
I wouldn't call it that. No,
Yeah.
I mean, I think Hades is way better than this, and I think Returnal is way better than this. But I think both of those games have a lot more. I mean, Hades certainly has more personality and more going on in terms of the narrative. Like, there's an actual. It's not as lighthearted and I mean, obviously, Hades is funny, and Hades is not a super serious game. There's a lot of funny stuff in Hades, but it's just a different approach, a different level. They're on a different level there. And Returnal is a horror game, basically.
Yep.
I don't find this kind of goofy, cartoony thing particularly interesting.
Yeah. Animation's pretty good though.
Oh, animation's great. Like all the enemies are done really well. Like exactly who everyone is. Like the hits feel satisfying when you hit them, and like there's some interesting like puzzles and stuff. And there's stuff like you have to beat enemies in certain orders, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just I just don't care.
To you, it's just unremarkable.
Yeah,
I guess,
it's
is the best
like
way to put it.
okay, like cool. It is like part of me just sort of looks at this and is like, it is indie game. Like
I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
So cool. Like, it's better than not playing anything this week, but I'm probably not going to go back to this too much.
Vincent is saying a lot of the praise for the first game was that it was just how accessible it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is more so. Like, they've stepped that up twofold at least. I mean, it's like anything.
So this is a non-intimidating roguelike.
None whatsoever. Like, I mean, you can make yourself invincible and able to fly if you want to. Like, if you just want to get through it.
Yeah.
You absolutely can do that. And the game is all right there in the options.
What would you recommend that people pay for this?
I mean, I think like $20 is a good price for it. Yeah.
So if you get it right now on its discount, probably
Absolutely.
A good deal.
Yeah. Like if you look at that and thought that looked cool, like, or you like the first one, I mean, there's no way you don't like this if you like the first one. Like It's just, and I feel like if you like the first one, you probably already own this. So.
Yep, that's true.
I was a little surprised. I mean, I didn't realize it was coming out. I mean, I knew it was in early access, but I didn't realize it was hitting, release.
Yeah. Been getting sky high reviews. It's pretty crazy. One good thing about the drought is that we're starting to touch on some indie stuff a little bit more in GameFace, which we normally just don't have time for. So, and coincidentally, there's been some pretty good indie games coming out. I think a lot of people. What was the game last week? Norto or Norco?
Norco, yeah.
I saw a lot of people were glad that we had included that in the show. Because a lot of people, I think, look to shows like this to get exposed to new games that they would have missed otherwise. So it's a little different without all the big AAA stuff coming out at once, but still all good, I believe. All right, let's move on to our last topic of episode 299. We're going to talk about something that was just announced today. Matt, I think Blizzard has finally reached the end of its hiatus, where it was like, man, our name has been dragged through the mud for all this terrible stuff. We had this acquisition going on.
And
we
are the ones who poured all the mud on it. So.
Pretty much. And now the dust has kind of settled a little bit, and it feels like Blizzard is finally like, okay, we can now go back to business as usual.
Well, now that they're basically saying like, oh, we can't fix everything because that would cost too much money.
Yeah.
Fuck them. Fuck this.
We're going to be really happy when we talk about this next game.
I don't even like that we're talking about this. We shouldn't even be giving them any attention at this point. Let Microsoft buy them and clear the toxic detritus out of that horrible
I think that's
place.
happening.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, it's still announcing games. And in fact, today it announced a brand new game called Warcraft Arclight Rumble. It's basically a free-to-play Clash of Clans clone set in the Warcraft universe.
Well, that doesn't devalue the brand at all.
They call it a mobile action strategy game set within the Warcraft universe.
I call it a thing I will never play.
Where collectible minis come to life to battle in frantic melee skirmishes. Do you play any mobile games at all? I think we just talked about this last week, actually. Yeah, neither one of us do. In fact, didn't you delete some mobile games off your phone live on the show last week?
A couple of them, yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah, it's the first new Warcraft game that's been announced in a really long time.
Like, I try them once in a while, but they're all terrible games.
Did you ever play Clash of Clans?
I think so. Or I played a game that was like, or played like the Age of Empires game that was like it.
There's so many clones of
I played clones. Maybe it was. I played the Transformers game that was a clone of it.
What's that game that Pac plays? He's obsessed with.
Oh, was it Legendary?
Puzzles, something in puzzles and Empires and Puzzles or something like that.
The match 3.
Yeah, but this is obviously something different. I think this is a little more involved. It's like almost like Pokemon. Because you're collecting like all these little toys of the Warcraft characters.
Yeah, that's like the Transformers permutation of Clash of Clans, where like one of the big draws is getting the characters.
Yeah, so there's 60 plus characters in this.
I'm sure. I don't know who any of these people are. Like,
really?
I recognize Thrall and like Jaina Proudmoore and stuff, but like. It always blows my mind that there are named characters in Warcraft, like beyond like the 5 main characters. Like it's just I don't know.
Well, it feels like they had to name them. Also, the one character they're doing the air guitar. Does that really fit with Warcraft? Where the guitars in Warcraft?
I mean I remember air guitar emotes and stuff for like the zombies and stuff and the undead. I think there was some stuff like that.
Yeah, this is pretty disappointing, isn't it? The new Warcraft game
you'd have to have expectations.
Free-to-play mobile strategy game.
I'd have to have expectations to be disappointed.
Yeah, because it's like a cross between like tower defense and MOBA is the best way I could describe it.
Yeah.
Because you like set up like your defenses or whatever. You set up your units on the map and just kind of cross your fingers as like a big part of the game design. But Blizzard does say there's 6 modes set in 70 maps. As I said, over 60 different collectible characters. There's PvP, there's PvE. No, there's PvP and there's cooperative, actually. Yeah. I can see why they didn't hold this for for like BlizzCon, because their experience of debuting mobile games at their big events have not
you
gone
finally
over.
got past the Diablo Immortal hurdle. You don't want to make this your next like 10-year shame.
Well, they were smart with this one. Like when they advertised or marketed the debut, they've said over and over again, this is a mobile Warcraft game, just to head it off at the pass for the most part. But it is kind of a shame that, Blizzard kind of goes into this.
Also feels like they must have started this when Skylanders was popular.
It does look a lot like Skylanders, doesn't it? It's a little disappointing that, Blizzard goes into this hiatus of not really debuting any games and really kind of staying silent, and this is what it comes out with. But you know what? Truth be told, this will probably generate like $1 billion a year for the next like 15 years. Mobile is this whole other universe that honestly, you and I really know nothing about. Let's be honest. Pactor knows a lot. When I go to shoot Pactor Factor, I have to budget in at least 30 to 45 minutes of me listening to him talking about mobile games and the mobile market and what's going on.
Well, I have done some work for a couple mobile companies, and I will say that like learning about how the demographics and stuff work there was mind shredding, because like so many of these games just like their revenue comes from like 90% of the revenue comes from 10% of their audience.
I know.
And the
whales.
top 1% of those whales, that's almost 70%. And something like people like Pactor, who
he's
like,
a whale. Empires and Puzzle, he's a whale.
Couple times I've heard people be like, yeah, one of our best customers is like this guy who's like a CFO at some company, and he spends $10,000 a day on the game.
Yep.
People
Pactor's
have
like
more money than they know what to do with, and they just play these games constantly when they don't have anything else to do.
Yeah, Pactor's like, hey, I'll give you $200 if you want to start playing Empires and Puzzles with me. I'm like, hey, how about you go to sifted.net/donate and just give me the $200 because I need that way worse than I need to play a mobile game right now, dude. Like, it's funny, but it's almost like this misery loves company thing where like in Brent, the guy who builds Sifted, he plays with Pactor, and both of those guys are always trying to get me to play mobile games. I don't understand it. It's like people don't want to be alone. They're like, we need to get Shane aboard so we don't feel so much shame from playing these mobile games.
Don't you want to be a Pepper too?
Exactly. It's really bizarre. But yeah, I mean, I didn't want to talk about this too long. It is really disappointing that this is kind of like Blizzard's big new game.
Basically the addiction hook thing that mobile games and MMOs and a lot of games like that traffic in as sort of their main draw, like that just doesn't work on me. Like
Me either.
I don't get hooked on games that aren't fun to play, and I've never run into one of these games that's fun to play.
See, I would argue MMOs are like that. Like,
I think I would agree most of the time.
I don't get suckered into playing them. I don't have that gene. I don't have that clicker gene where I just need to keep doing like the same thing over and over again. Like,
yeah, I do have friends who play like the one click thing, like those clicker things. I'm just like, what are you
doing? I know.
Or the idle games.
Yeah,
I'm just like, what? But so you don't play. The appeal is that you don't play it.
Well, dude, did you see
just check in once in a while?
That Glue Mobile company that made that god awful Kim Kardashian game sold for like $1 billion.
That's what you should have started a mobile
I know,
studio.
there's a million things I should have done besides what I did with my money. It was the worst investment I ever made in my life.
We could have made like the most generic fantasy game and checked out with millions and millions.
Well, the funny thing is, Brent, while he was building Sifted and while he was working a full-time job, he also built a mobile game, a mobile card battle game. That guy's a machine. He's amazing what he does. But he tried. He actually did make a mobile card battle game. And I don't think it ever really took off or whatever, but he tried. But it does seem like it's just like that easy, right? Like, it just seems like you just make a game on mobile and you just get rich. And I know that's bullcrap. I'm sure there are thousands of games released every day that do nothing. And somehow, certain games somehow bubble up to the top.
I mean, the way
Probably
they bubble
marketing
up
money.
you marketing. That's all it is. You spend it to get to the top of the algorithm, and once you hit a certain... it does help to have nice art.
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately your game has to be decent.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there are thousands of decent games that tank completely because the person didn't have the money to market it. Marketing is such a big deal. Like, if people ask me, like, what's the biggest thing that you've learned, like, running your own company? Marketing is a big deal. Yeah. Like, you have to have money to market because if people don't know that your product exists, you have no chance.
Well,
So
I mean, there's a reason that marketing was the power when Keeley was building his empire.
Yeah.
Like, he knew to talk to marketing because everything lives or dies. Like, marketing can make creative changes to games because they're like, we think it'll only sell if you do this, and then it happens.
They'll do it.
Like,
they'll change the game.
That's how the assassins in Assassin's Creed ended up wearing uniforms.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, they were not, Ezio was not supposed to be dressed exactly like Altair, but that had become the iconic look, and marketing was like, we want that on the cover.
That's their uniform.
That's what they look like.
Yeah.
So the secret people wear a recognizable uniform, and the Templars all dress differently.
Yeah.
It's
crazy.
Very weird.
Before we move on, though, this game is launching soon, and it's free to play, so you can play it for free. Sign-ups are live right now for iOS and Google Play, if you're so inclined. But it is a little depressing that this is kind of what we're getting from Blizzard at this point, and we're still waiting for Diablo 4. But I guess it's better than
I'm gonna
nothing.
continue waiting for Diablo 4 for quite some time, I think.
I mean, I was kind of wondering if development had even continued at Blizzard at this point, like if stuff just wasn't put on hiatus. So at least this shows that they are still working on games, even if they're not the games that we all hoped for and were wishing for a better debut. But it is what it is. All right. Time for some Q&A. Go into chat at Sifted Games. We have a little extra time today than normal, so we can answer a couple more questions if you guys have any. And that going at Sifted Games will help a ton with us pulling those questions out of the chat. Here's one from
No more name that game, huh?
I have to have stuff to give away,
Okay.
and I don't have anything. Like we did those 2 weeks because Justin Horman very graciously had supplied 2 game codes for us to give
I
away.
could definitely pull out some old Humble Bundle codes. I have dozens and
Pull them
dozens
out,
of
and we'll keep playing, and I'll get better, hopefully, at the visual version of it.
Someone did make a good point last week where, like, someone knew, I think, was it Erebus Jones that knew it, or Justin Horman? I can't remember. But somebody knew that I was talking about Darwinia off of my incredibly vague description of it. Like, and that instantly they knew what it was. Like, you have no chance with
I
these
know.
people. Like,
Dude, our chat is amazing. Really amazing. Like, we just put up the episode of GameFace where I got all bummed out because people had figured out that it was Portal so quickly. And people are in the comments on YouTube are just laughing their asses off. They're like, yeah, of course. Like, this is what we do. Like, we're hardcore freaking gamers. Like,
and even if you don't see the cake, it looks like they're right. It looks like a Source game. Like there's a look to it.
yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, I knew that was also the thing with Bully was like there's something about it that looked like Rockstar's engine.
You're right.
You know, like,
it's funny though how we have this like sixth sense to pick stuff like that up, and other people just
we
don't
spent
have it.
Hours of our lives staring at this shit.
It's pretty crazy though how it embeds in your mind though. You guys are amazing. Like you guys could host this show. Maybe that's what we should start doing. New Taylor, Shane, why did you tell me that Kim Kardashian game exists? Why does that bother you? Are you gonna go download it and play it now? Is there a name for like Kim Kardashian fans? Kimites or something? Is there a word for like fans of the Kardashians?
I mean, I think they're probably an anti-fan.
Because there's like the Beehive, right, for Bae.
That's Beyonce, yeah.
Yeah, Beyonce is the Beehive. Is there something for the Kardashians? God, I hope not. It's been so funny. Like because right now LA is just smothered in Kardashians. Everywhere you go, it's that same photo of them for that new Hulu show that they have. And it's just, you see, like, at a bus stop, you'll see this picture of the Kardashians with all their cosmetic surgery and their fake boobs and their $5,000 jackets that they're wearing. And then there'll be a homeless guy laying on the sidewalk in front of the poster. It is the most LA thing ever. It's just, and the whole city is just covered in it right now. I thought they were going away. I thought they were quitting their show, and now it's worse than ever, Matt. Like, when they had their other show, I never saw crap like that. Now that they launched this Hulu thing, it's everywhere. Anyway, why am I talking about this? Thanks for bringing up Kim Kardashian. Vincent, do you think they specifically planned the Warcraft mobile announcement to go alongside the Overwatch 2 beta so the core audience would be distracted? Distracted from what? From Overwatch 2 not being great?
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the distraction would be, Vincent. But maybe you can add that later on in the chat and we'll answer it. Cinetike, marketing is my nemesis. Let me bring up the chat actually so you guys can see it. And let me get the Give Me Credit roll rolling for all the people who give us $30 a month or more. Thank you guys very much. Without you people, we would be in deep. We're already in deep doo-doo. What am I talking about? We'd be in deeper doo-doo if it weren't for you people.
There doesn't seem to be a name for Kardashian fans.
No?
No.
That's shocking. That's really shocking. Cinetike, marketing is my nemesis and source of all my anguish in life. What field do you think he works in, Matt?
Any.
He probably works in marketing.
Yeah.
Specifically on the PC hardware space, the amount of BS marketing terms bring forward completely disconnected to the physical reality drives me insane. Okay, he had no question, but that's a good comment. Norix Nessie, what's up, Norix? Whom do you reckon, I love that, benefits more from the guest characters in Fortnite? Epic for getting the guest characters or the license holders for getting their properties out there and current in the public mind?
I think that's almost a 50-50 split.
Probably.
Like, I think I think it depends on the demographic, but I think you're getting the former with like Epic gets the advantage of having those characters and get parents and older people to take note, because a lot of them tend to be appealing to an older audience, and you're introducing those characters to younger kids.
Yeah.
Like I know a lot of my friends who have kids, like their kids know a lot of different characters and a lot of different media things specifically from Fortnite.
Yeah.
Certainly. And even sometimes when it's something that the kids probably should, like a couple of kids, some of my friends up north, want to see Moon Knight now, because Moon Knight was in Fortnite or something like that. And so like
It works.
and so like, but like Moon Knight isn't really a kid's show.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he's not actually in it too much. I mean, the Moon Knight costume, you don't see that Moon Knight very often. So they're like, maybe later. But but it works. Definitely gets the kids interested in whatever they're looking at, and it makes parents or whoever who are like, are aware of those things, are to be like, oh, that's in Fortnite. Oh, crazy. So I would say it's a very, very symbiotic relationship.
One of my nephews, his grades just dropped in school drastically. And so, they're trying to figure out what's going on, why, his grades have fallen so much in a short period of time. And they sent him to the counselor, and the counselor blamed it all on Fortnite. She said she talked to him, and all he would talk about the whole time was Fortnite. What he's doing in Fortnite, what cosmetics he has in Fortnite, what people he was going to play Fortnite with when he got home from school. And do you think that's right? Do you think that that's really the problem?
I mean, it's the manifestation of the problem.
Yeah.
Kids have been distracted by whatever hobby or whatever thing they'd rather be doing forever.
Yeah.
I wasn't addicted to Fortnite, but I was addicted to going to work at the comic shop, what I was addicted to was doing things that earned me money.
Yeah.
That's what I was. Yeah, I wouldn't do homework because I was going out with my friends. We were doing paper route stuff, or I was working at the comic shop, or I was going to the arcade where we do some odd job things and then play more games and stuff. I mean, I used all the money immediately almost.
Yeah.
But like I was more interested in going out and doing stuff and hanging out with people. I was not interested in school at a certain point. And like it wasn't because of what I was doing; it was because of I wasn't engaged.
Yeah.
The kid's probably bored. Would be my guess.
Well, they blamed his grade drops on Fortnite, and they told my sister, his mom, to keep him from playing Fortnite, and he like lost his mind because she uses Fortnite as a bargaining chip to get him to do other stuff. She's like, you need to clean your room or you can't play Fortnite. You need to eat all your vegetables or you can't play Fortnite. And now the teacher is telling her, you need to take Fortnite away from him, and now she has no bargaining chip with him anymore, and now he's unruly at home, and he's pissed off because he can't play Fortnite. It's bizarre.
Yeah, removing the thing that the kid enjoys, as long as it's not detrimental to his health, is a mistake. I mean, cut way down, sure, but you can't like just cut that out and act like that's gonna solve the problem, because now you've just become the enemy.
Yeah, and he's making his mom the enemy.
Yep.
I mean, he doesn't hate the counselor at school; he hates my sister.
Yeah, like who cares what the teacher says? Like, the teacher doesn't have to live with you.
Yeah.
Like there's a way to manage that does not involve like basically cold turkey.
Yeah, an addiction.
An addiction, yeah.
It's funny. But it's one thing I will say, too, is at Christmas, I have so many nieces and nephews. I have so many brothers and sisters, and they've all had 2 or 3 kids at this point. There's just so many. And so I buy them all these gifts at Christmas, and then what hits harder than anything is a V-Bucks card. Like, I can buy them the coolest toy. I can buy them a video game. But they open that V-Bucks card and they dance around the room. They run around the room in circles. They dance. They at the end of like the gift opening thing, they all sit down and they count who has the most V-Bucks. Like, it's definitely a thing. Like, there's no doubt about it that we should probably keep an eye on. I don't want to sound like the old grumpy old dude though.
I mean,
and of course, I would never tell him to stop playing.
It's just like everything. There's always been stuff like that. It's not anything new.
I'm too concerned about...
Used to be Pokemon cards, or Yu-Gi-Oh cards, or Magic cards, or...
Always something, yeah.
Like how many decks of Pokemon cards were confiscated, 20 years ago. It's just how kids get into things.
We know what V-Bucks is, though. It's the currency in the game.
Of Fortnite, yeah.
So they can buy all their stuff.
I don't know what you do with it, but apparently it's important.
Yep. Norris Desi, thank you for Twitch Prime. And Justin Norman, check your DMs. I sent you another game last week. Okay. DMs where?
That's
on
usually
Sifted?
Twitter.
Or on Twitter.
DM is usually Twitter.
Yeah. Okay. I'll check all my DMs and I'll look for it. AJ the Legend Watson, is Matt attending Star Wars Celebration?
No.
No? Do you ever go to that?
I've been.
Is it worth it to go in person?
Maybe once.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to 3 of them, I think, and they're all kind of the same.
Okay.
Conventions don't do a lot for me.
Anymore, me either.
No.
Now I just look at them as a way to get COVID.
Yeah, there's some of that too. Also, the problem with like stuff like that is like I went to all that stuff for free for so long because it was part of my job.
Yeah.
That then like spending a few $100s to go do this thing that I've already
Seems absurd.
There's no appeal to it.
I agree.
Like if I had a group of friends who was going and they all wanted to like have me come with them, like I would probably do it. But just to go, I don't. There's no interest. I don't have any interest in that.
Me too. I agree.
Any interesting news that pops up, I'm probably going to hear about it before anyone there anyway who's not in the actual room with it.
Cinetech says it was not a question, just an anguished confession. Fair enough. We all need to vent somehow. Sneaky Charlotte Snake says, I have a load of humble codes you can have. I don't have a PC. Also, yes, I'm weird. We're all weird. Agreed. We are all weird in our own way. I agree with that. What else we got here from you guys? Mega Drive Guy, thank you for Twitch Prime. That's awesome. Also, people listening to this show out on the podcast services or on YouTube, you can help us for free with Twitch Prime. That's what we're talking about here on the live show, Twitch Prime. People are giving us a free $2.50 every time they subscribe. And the instructions for doing that are down in the description below if you're watching the show on YouTube. We would really, really appreciate it if you guys could do that. Like, we need the help. Kongrim1, will you guys be playing Ayuden Chronicles Rising? Is a prequel to the successful Kickstarter game from the former Konami developers. I am well aware of Ayuden Chronicles Rising. My question is, where the hell is Ayuden Chronicles? Why?
Oh, that's a long way away.
Why?
They hadn't even started it when that Kickstarter happened. So.
Why is there a spin-off for the game like before the game comes out? Like, why wouldn't they
Also,
just...
the spin-off doesn't look very good.
It looks okay.
Is it certainly not... I don't know.
It's on Game Pass, so
yeah.
No skin off my ass.
I mean, I backed the main game. Like, Suikoden? For sure.
Yeah. For those who don't know, it's supposed to be the spiritual successor to Suikoden.
By a lot of people who made Suikoden.
Right.
So, like, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, no, they always said, like, they're 2024, basically. Where this thing came from, I don't know. But yeah, I'll try it, sure. Oddly enough, you don't get it if you're a backer. So
you don't get this...
The prequel thing.
Really?
You have to buy it separately, yeah.
Really? That's crazy.
At least I don't. Maybe I'm not a high enough tier. I don't know.
Wow, that's shocking.
But it certainly wasn't mentioned in the original Kickstarter, so it wasn't something people were backing as a reward. It just
they weren't counting on it.
Sort of popped up, and it seems like they're charging separate for it.
Okay. Zaboom Mafu with Crack Bros. Okay, that's a good username, I think. Shane, you previously stated that reviews don't matter, but you've also said the success of Elden Ring is because of its score. Would you care to rectify the two? I do not remember saying reviews don't matter.
Yeah, I don't think you would ever say that. I've said that.
Yeah, I think you had me.
I don't think reviews impact sales very much.
Yeah, I don't remember ever saying that, actually. But Matt has said it before.
Yeah.
And I don't think Matt said that about Elden Ring, so the question doesn't matter, really.
No, I mean, I don't think Elden Ring sold double what your average From game did because of reviews. I think it sold that because it has a reputation through word of mouth from the previous games, and it was very heavily advertised, and George R.R. Martin's name is attached to it.
Yeah. It's all good, man. It's easy to get us too mixed up, the things that we say, because we talk for 3 hours a week, every week.
Yeah.
It's hard to remember what each one of us says. Emperor Dread, why are there no good Star Trek games? Good question.
There are a couple.
Bridge Crew is not terrible.
Bridge Commander.
Bridge Commander.
Well, no, Bridge Crew and Bridge Commander separate game. Bridge Crew is the VR one. Bridge Commander is the non-VR bridge simulator from many years ago.
It's old.
All the good Star Trek games are almost 20 plus years old. They're all on GOG.
Why aren't there good ones?
They haven't made any in a long time, for one thing. But like,
why?
Star Trek 25th Anniversary and Star Trek Judgment Rights are really good point-and-click adventure Star Trek games. The Starfleet Academy games are all good. The Elite Force was a pretty good first-person shooter back in the day. There were some good ones in the 90s, early 2000s, but then they all dropped off. And the reason there haven't been any is because Star Trek went away, basically. There was, now we're back in a kind of this regular Star Trek shows and... Well, not movies, but Star Trek is a thing again in that. But what are you going to do? How are you going to make a Discovery game? It's a hard ask. Star Trek Online's been going for a long time. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't care about Star Trek at all.
I do, but not enough to seek out new life and new civilizations for it. Also, I don't really care about an ongoing Star Trek. One of the things that I think is a flaw in modern Star Trek is the constant need to tell sort of the ongoing serialized story that all shows do now. I think Star Trek works better as an episodic adventure show, which is exactly what Strange New Worlds, that new show that's premiering this week,
each episode self-contained story, that beginning, end.
Yeah, and you can have character
continuity. I agree with that.
Obviously, you can have character continuity and characters that evolve over time, whatever. But the thrust of the series in a pure Star Trek situation is to tell individual
stories,
episodic stories that have some kind of story or point or message.
Yeah,
because that's what science fiction does best, and that's what Star Trek was built to do.
Agreed.
And you can certainly have characters grow and develop relationships with each other through all that, but it shouldn't be the focus of Star Trek shouldn't be getting me to tune in to see what happens next. It should be telling me an hour-long story. As the original series and Next Gen and Voyager did that. I mean, I love Deep Space Nine. I actually do think the best Star Trek thing is the Dominion War arc of Deep Space Nine, but that is partly because I'm a giant Babylon 5 nerd, and that's the closest thing Star Trek ever did to Babylon 5. For me, the kind of the overall best Star Trek stuff is when they're just, basically telling short stories. Like, that's what it should be.
That's how I like it better that way. But to his question, like, why aren't there Star Trek games? I believe it's because, unlike Star Wars, Star Trek has not done a great job of developing a wide breadth of characters like Star Wars did. Like, I don't know any enemies in Star Trek other than the Klingon, like a whole race of people.
Oh no, that's not true.
I know there are,
Klingons
but my point is that people like me, I have no idea of any Star Trek villains.
I mean, I think generally most people do know Klingons, Romulans, and the Borg.
The Borg, I know what they are.
If they've been in the movies,
but there's no Darth Vader, Jabba the Hutt, the Emperor, like these iconic villains that
right. But I will. So I don't agree with that. I think.
I mean, I'm a nerd, dude, and
right. But no, I don't agree.
Love
with,
sci-fi.
But I
don't know any of them.
But I don't agree with what you're talking about there in terms of the comparison to Star Wars, because Darth Vader and those characters weren't really part of the old Star Wars games either. They were background characters. They weren't what you were doing. The problem with Star Trek and adapting it to a video game is that Star Trek is not really an action-oriented franchise.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, you can't really recreate the experience of watching Star Trek in a video game without being, frankly, kind of slow and boring. Like, that's why one of the best original series game is a point-and-click adventure, because it just simulates beaming down to a planet and figuring things out and talking to people and then going back to the ship. Like, Star Wars is like you fly a space starfighter and then you blow a thing up and then you hit a guy with a laser sword and then you shoot a bunch of stormtrooper Nazis and then you run around over here and then fight a monster and then fly away on a jetpack. Like, that's all awesome. That's like, you're just like, I can make the video game in my head right now.
You want to do
Star Trek is like, the appeal of Star Trek is like the world and the sort of problem solving and the character interactions and all that stuff. And like, that is much, much harder to replicate in a video game. And the problem with
it would make for a boring video game.
Well, that's the thing, is like, if you make the video game that like the core Star Trek audience wants, it's boring. If you make a Star Trek video game that you think the mainstream audiences want, the core audience is going to be turned off.
It's inauthentic,
and they're going to not want it. So like, what are you making it for?
Yeah.
Like Bethesda tried that a couple times. They tried, Star Trek Legacy. And that one that was on the PS2 that was like a top-down sort of shooter thing.
I don't even remember.
I can't remember the name of that. First Command or Flight Command or something like that. Things like that. There have been strategy games, but like none of them really gelled. And like, what's the one that was really the most successful is probably the VR one. Yeah. Where you felt like you were in Star Trek. Yeah. Like, that's it. Like, that's the thing.
That makes sense. That should be what works.
I mean, that's what you're trying to simulate, and that really hasn't been an opportunity to do that until recently. Like, one of the longest running Star Trek games is not a Star Trek game. It is a homebrew game called Artemis. And you download Artemis onto all these laptops and things, and you put it on. Basically, everybody has their own little workstation on a laptop, and you network them all together, and you put the main screen on a TV, and everybody has their own role on the ship, and you go through like missions, like in a group. It's like a role play thing.
Yeah.
And like, it's cool. Like, it's just made by one guy. He's been making it for like 15 years. You go buy it for like $20, and it's like the best Star Trek game ever made. But like, Universal just can't get their act together on that. I don't know. Like, I don't know why. I don't know what to tell you. And then like, you do make something like Star Trek Bridge Crew, which is great, but nobody cares because nobody has VR
the barrier to entry is there. Yeah.
And then it costs a lot for the license, and now more than 2 years pass, and you want to pay to renew the license, so you can't even sell it anymore. So like, who cares? Star Trek is a tough nut to crack in terms of turning it into a video game, I think.
Because I think if publishers could figure it out that easily, they'd do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons I think a lot of Star Trek fans I know are pretty excited about that Telltale style game, because that really is the way you capture Star Trek more than anything else. Is like that, it's a storytelling medium. It's a way to capture the characters. It's a way to capture sort of exploring, the social issues of, it's a social issue sci-fi franchise. It's always been very politically forward and politically minded and socially minded from back in the 60s even and today, and like, that's how Star Trek is Star Trek. That and the dynamics of how the crew works together. If you don't have a crew with like, some real chemistry, it's not going to work. That's why the Orville is a better Star Trek show than a lot of the recent Star Trek stuff, because you believe that crew works together well.
Right.
Like they all work. And one of the reasons I stopped watching the Orville is my favorite character left the show.
Oh.
And it was no longer the same thing, and I didn't like it anymore. That's all it takes sometimes.
Yeah.
So if you don't get that dynamic between the crew right in that video game you're trying to make, what are you going to do? And then, like, of course, you also have the fracturing of the fan base where it's like some of the better Star Trek action games have been Elite Force, that back when they made that. And those were Voyager games. And that was during the period where no self-respecting Star Trek fan would admit they liked Voyager.
Oh, right.
And now people do like Voyager. Now it's okay to say you like Voyager because you're supposed to hate the new stuff and love the old
fandom.
Stuff. So, yeah, I just generally think Star Trek is a much harder thing to figure out how to translate to a video game than Star Wars, because Star Wars is just slam, bang, shoot, run, hit, swing, action. Like,
Yep.
It's just way easier to capture what is cool about Star Wars than it is to capture what's cool about Star Trek. And that is not to say that Star Wars is better than Star Trek. I like Star Wars better than Star Trek. But Star Trek is just a more cerebral, subtle thing. That's all.
Yep.
And that doesn't translate to video games too well all the time. Especially in a license situation where you have to answer to like 5 different people who all have different ideas about what this thing should be.
Yeah. It's tough. It's a tough nut to crack, as you said. We'll take one more from the legacy. Will this generation of consoles be seen as transitional because of the effect of all these acquisitions won't happen until the end of the generation? Good question. Really good question, actually.
You say that again?
Let me read it again. Will this generation of consoles be seen as transitional because of the effect of all these acquisitions won't happen until the end of the generation? I don't think it's going to happen at the end of the generation. I think this generation is going to be a lot longer than you think it is.
Yeah, I do think this generation is going to go on for a long time.
Because it hasn't even started yet, let's be honest.
Because I think actually it's kind of the other way around. I mean, it will be considered transitional because a lot of transition is going to happen during this generation, but I think a lot of these major publishers, major hardware manufacturers that are buying up all these developers, they're going to want to see some return on those investments this gen, and they will make this gen last as long as they need to make sure they get that.
I feel like this
they
gen
want to sell
hasn't even started.
Well, they want to sell the game, especially not even the first game, but the second game out of what this dev you've acquired. You want to sell that game to your massive install base of this gen.
Yeah,
you do not want to transition to the PS6 or the Xbox Series X2, whatever the hell they're gonna do. Every generation we're gonna go through this thing. We're like, what are they gonna call the next Xbox? Weird thing are they gonna do with the Xbox?
Well, I think the problem is that it goes back to the law of diminishing returns, and we're already seeing it here, where you have these games that are made for both the PS4 Pro and for the PS5, and if you play these games in 4K on the PS4 Pro and compare them to the PS5 version, it's really hard to tell the difference. And the next generation, that gap's going to get even smaller, and you're going to have to spend more money to even get the same gap. So I really think this generation of consoles may stick around. I hate to say it, for almost 8 or 10 years.
I don't see a thing that could, there was a point where you realize that, okay, if we want to jump to the ray tracing stuff and the super fast hard drive, all that stuff, they decided that was the next thing to do. You hit a point where we can't just release an incremental upgrade. This is a full hardware revision. We got to do a new console. And so now think about what you would need to do to justify new hardware. And not like a PS5 Pro where you just make the hard drive a little bigger, and you make the ray tracing a little better, make the hardware a little more powerful. But what's the next big trick? I guess really good ray tracing.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's not much you would need to do that couldn't be justified as an incremental upgrade versus a brand new system.
Yeah.
Also, wait until you see what these things made with Unreal 5 look like.
Yep.
Because there you're gonna see
it's
going to be like a whole new generation started again.
You're right, and that's really probably when the next gen will really start, I believe. Mm-hmm. And by then, we won't be having these games that are released for the old platform and the new platform.
Yeah, I think you're going to have... I think this gen's going to be 10 years.
I think so too, man. I really think it is. Because again, it hasn't really started. I still feel like we have one foot back in last gen.
I think that it is transitional right now. It's definitely very transitional. But I think in 5 years we'll look back at this part of the gen and be like, wow, can you imagine that was this gen?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we get Starfield 2 before the Xbox Series X is irrelevant.
I'm not going to place any bets on Bethesda.
Well, that is Bethesda.
Yeah,
but you get what I'm saying.
Almost any other game you would be right.
Would have made a better example. Yeah. So I think you're going to feel good about getting a next-gen console or new-gen, whatever the hell people are calling it now, even though we're almost 2 years into this thing. I think people have now switched to new-gen. But you should feel good about buying a new-gen console if you haven't got one yet, because even it's 2 years in, and we're still just getting started. So I think that's good on a lot of fronts. Like, don't,
At the very least, like, it's going to have to wait until people can just walk into a store and buy a PS5.
Yeah. And who knows?
And
that's
probably 2 years away.
It might be, which is crazy. It's just the timing of this gen launching with the pandemic is just it's the worst timing ever. It couldn't be worse.
The pandemic and the shipping problems and the international.
All of it.
We got a recession probably coming. We got inflation going out of control. Like, it's bad for all business right now, and pulling out of it is going to take a big global shift, and I don't know when that might happen.
Well, it's real bad for us. That's all I can say. We are getting slaughtered by, I don't know what it is, but we have just lost so many patrons, there's hardly anyone left on our old on-site subscription system. So what you're seeing on our Patreon now is pretty much all we're making every month. That's it. And it's bad. I don't know what to tell you guys. I've been talking about it for weeks.
What do you hear when I'm going to start charging you for the studio space?
Exactly. Then it's over. It's over at that point. So if you are listening to the show on any of the podcast services, and the show is everywhere, it is on Spotify, it is on iHeartRadio, it's on Apple Podcasts, it's on Google Podcasts, it's on Stitcher. If you're listening to the show on any of those services, and I know there are so many of you because we get the reports, there's so many of you who have been listening to this show for free for like 6 years. You can't go to patreon.com/sifted and finally pay a little bit for the show. We need it. We need your help. So please do that. If you've been watching the show on YouTube for 5 or 6 years now and you've never helped us out, now's the time. I know a lot of people are worried because, inflation's bad. You're spending more for everything else. I totally get it. And I don't want anyone to spend money that they don't have to support us. I would never ask anyone to do that. But there's a lot of people out there who are doing really damn well right now and just don't want to support us for whatever reason. And those are the people that I'm calling out to. Like, now's the time to step up. If you've been getting this show for free, for how long? How many hours of entertainment have Matt and I given you guys? Thousands at this point. Like, help us out. I don't know what else I can say at this point. So, if you are one of those people, head to patreon.com/sifted.
Yeah, we would have crossed 1,000 by now.
Yeah.
300 episodes plus E3 stuff.
Oh,
plus, like, someone goes, yeah.
Oh, we had all those shows that weren't even counted. Like, we had, like, the GameFace freestyle that we did for a while. Like, we've easily over 1,000 hours we have given a lot of people for free entertainment. Like, we can't... There are
never
people,
getting any of that back.
Like, the crawl that goes along the bottom of the screen during GameFace, those people have been floating your bill for, like, 6 years now. Like, isn't it cool for you to, like... let them off the hook a little bit and give them a little relief? Like, I don't know how you could listen to this show as long as you have and not want to at least support a little bit. So please do it. Head to patreon.com/sifted. And for $4 a month, you get all our content early. You get GameFace 4 days early. You get Pachter Factor a week early. You get all of our stuff at least 4 days early. So please do it. I don't want to beg, but that's all that's left at this point. Because I'm just being honest with you. We're in really bad shape. What you see on that Patreon right now is the only money we make. Think about it. Like, all the expenses that we have running a website, paying Matt, paying Vincent, I get what's left. So you can imagine the position that I'm in right now. Just telling you. Thanks to everybody on our chat, though. You guys are awesome. And you guys all support us with, at the very least, Twitch Prime, which everyone should be doing because it's free. If you are an Amazon Prime member, Twitch Prime is free. You can give us a free $2.50 every month. It costs you nothing. It takes 2 seconds to resubscribe every month. Please do that. It does make a big difference. It's one of our only other alternate revenue streams. Like, we make nothing off of YouTube because all y'all are ad blockers. You guys are all blocking ads on YouTube, which sucks. So even if you don't want to give us money, maybe turn off your ad blocker when you watch GameFace. I don't know. That's something you can do to help. We need all the help we can get. I'm just being honest. So thanks to everybody who's in our chat. Our chat is awesome. You guys are like friggin' geniuses. And you know games pretty much just as well as Matt and I do. And it's an honor to make content for you guys. And I really appreciate all that you've done. Some of you guys have stepped up your pledges over the last couple weeks trying to help us. I see it and I appreciate it. I just want you guys to know that. We need more people. We need more people pulling the rope. We can't have the same amount of people, the same people floating the bill for everybody else. Do you not have a conscience? Like, All these people, their names are scrolling along the bottom. They're paying your way. Do you not feel like a freeloader? I don't get it. Like, let's do it. Let's make it happen. It's getting to the 11th hour here. We need the help. So just being honest with you guys like I have been from day one with Sifted. I have always been honest with you guys and told you exactly what's going on, and that's what I'm doing right now. So just a reminder, no GameFace next week. Matt is out of town. Hopefully everything goes great with your films and everything at the film festival. Everyone cheer Matt on. Follow him at mkyle if you can, and root him on. And are you tweeting stuff about this where people can help you and all that?
There will be, like, or at least I'll be retweeting what Brian, the director, does tweet.
Okay.
So you'll find it.
Make sure you follow him at mkyle. You can find me on Twitter at Dinfire. You guys probably know that already. You can follow Sifted at Sifted Games.
And I think you can actually, if you're in Minneapolis, you can actually go to it. Like, it's
what's the festival called?
Oh, that's the Minneapolis St. Paul Film Festival or something like that.
Okay.
There will be social media put up that I'll probably retweet from Brian as it gets closer. But it's Tuesday. It's a week from today.
Okay.
And there's a shorts block that we're in.
Yeah.
So
if you can support Matt, do it.
And there'll be a Q&A afterward.
Are you going to be a part of it?
That's the plan. Yeah.
Are they live streaming?
No.
Say we curate it and put it up on Sifted.
No. It's all you don't do that. You got to go to see it.
Okay. So anyway, don't forget, no GameFace next week.
And then the dance film that was premiered in Phoenix will be at the New York Cinefest the weekend after that.
Awesome. Are you going there too?
No, I'm not going.
You're not going to go?
No.
Okay. So anyway, no GameFace next week. Don't show up here on Tuesday, although I will show up in the chat just in case some of you do, and I'll let you guys know there's no show. I always do that. And there's always a couple people that show up and are like, where is everybody? So anyway, don't show up next week. Episode 300 is the next episode. I am working on some stuff to try to make it something special. So you have to see that in 2 weeks. And don't forget that we are premiering a brand new show on Sifted here, probably in the next week, that Vincent has been working on very diligently behind the scenes. So on behalf of Matt, on behalf of Vincent, thank you guys for watching. Thanks for showing up on the live stream. GameFace is up and out.